back then, and the reason I reminisce, cause Extrae again. Everybody knows Extrae again. To the girls and boys and people above. This is the summer fall.
Shall we play?
Okay. Peace, peace. Let's get it. Episode 95. Thank you for being here.
You know that, though. Bruh. That can't be a real nigga. That nigga is clearly a Grand Theft Auto created character. He look like he'll get hit by a car and get back up and continue to walk. Bruh, I be trying to tell you, we live in a video game world.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we were just debating like what's your hair stripe gonna look like?
It kind of looks blended out, right? It doesn't get the spikiness, but it's there.
It's just at the edge of uncanny valley. Like I know what you guys look like, so I know that they look like you.
This is I feel like this is like a 9 out of 10, like of how we actually look.
Every single time I get on a FaceTime call with this, it's the same reaction of, whoa, like this is weird.
Yeah.
And I realize I've gotten used to it, and I think after a while, everyone using this is just gonna get used to it after you get over the initial, holy crap, look at this thing.
Guru Clifford Stoll was one of the first scientists on the internet. He's an expert in computer programming, but he's also one of an increasingly vocal group of skeptics wondering if computers really are the best way to teach kids.
I was born on the 13th. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. My first album went gold in the US in 13 weeks. Every time I've won an award at an award show, I've been seated in row M, which is the 13th letter, or like the 13th seat, or the 13th row, or the 13th section. It's really a good number.
All right.
Painless, simple, easy, safe. Make it happen. Roll up your sleeves, New York. That should be a campaign. Roll up your sleeves.
The big problem that we have to discuss today is the perception that science has lost its independence. Remark by Dr. Fauci last week about the 6-foot distancing was very damaging in the general populace, because he basically said, well, it was an assumption we made. It seemed like a good idea, but we didn't really have science behind it, but yet it still became public policy.
The pandemic arrived. Dr. Fauci was already a legend. Then he became a household name. Dr. Fauci's distinguished career and deep expertise helped him earn America's trust. But it was his ability to explain complicated things clearly and his willingness to do it just about anywhere that made him one of the most effective public health leaders we've ever seen.
The world got suddenly exposed as to how do you do large-scale clinical trials in vaccines, a space I was also involved in for many years. And suddenly now people are learning for the first time, how does this even work? And we've never really been transparent about the ups and downs, the benefits and the risks of any therapeutic or any vaccine, which is always the case. So I think we need to be much, much more transparent. And we talked about this in the room before. We need to actually get much more diversity in science. I mean, people want to hear from voices that look like them, that have their experience, that encourages participation in clinical trials. But I think that big shift is that we're going to tell you and you're going to trust us. And now we need to explain it in a human way so that people can actually come with you on this journey of science.
The following special presentation is brought to you in full stereo sound.
point is that it's only science fiction until it's reality.
We can be facing the most shocking challenge that humanity has ever faced, whose outcome may depend on the continuity of the human species. The path we choose will have different consequences.
Well, if it isn't March Madness, little emphasis on the March there. I guess specifically March 22nd, yes, 3/2/2. Not really surprised yet, disturbed, right? I saw some clips of this, man, going around on the Videodrome, aka Twitter, snuff feed. And boy, it's pretty disturbing, man. It looks graphic, gruesome, gory. Now, hey, we got crazy state-of-the-art AI deepfake technology. CGI is of the next level. You know, though I do understand real things do happen, right? There is the concept, an almost prerequisite of the shedding of blood with regard to sacrifice, ritual, etc. So, you know, we have to consider all of these things when we address these happenings, these events. But the date just gives it away for me. And I know to the general population, to the normie, you know, coincidence theorist, or the fully rational, this might be a silly idea. But, you know, for those of us that have been around the block a little bit in these parts, you know, wild and violent things going on 3/2/2 tend to be linked to something, right? And of course, that is Skull and Bones anniversary. Now, as I said, I did see some clips of this, and apparently they even got a couple of the hatsies, if you will. And man, it looked gross, man. I'm talking blood and gore, all that. So this looks to be as if it was most likely a type of FF, if you know what I mean. It looks like some real blood was shed. But again, hey, man, we don't really know what's going on here. It's really hard to know what's real and what's not real. Very difficult due to the fact that we have high technologies that make it hard to know when we're being told the truth, when we're being lied to, when we're being manipulated. But this is the sign of the times. This is where we're at, guys. And it will only get more intense with regard to simulacra, hyperreality, going into extended reality. This is the unfortunate part, well, at least one part of our future, is the war on ontology, the inability to truly trust our own senses. Interestingly, there's institutions, networks, and organizations that seek to replace our senses altogether, digitize them, living in this new mediated existence, which we're already kind of used to, say, post-2010. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Regarding the 322 Moscow, you know, for me, it's just another psyop, another operation. Of course, we pray for those who were injured in that situation. Whatever happened, and you know, it's unfortunate, and this could be part of the whole program as well. The desensitization of it all, you know, to the point where we're so used to seeing these things that it's hard for us to garner some type of emotional state regarding it, right? It's almost like it hardens us in a way. So let's be sure to not let this stuff harden our hearts, especially towards our fellow man, right? Because I know it's easy to do that, especially post-COVID. You know, it was a division. It created polar sides of people of science, people of nature, you know, anti, pro, all of that. Let's be sure not to play into their dialectics, because that's by design. And I know it's difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not. But it's important that we at least attempt to be thoughtful in this process as we are manipulated, abused in so many ways. And let's not, you know, go into this whole trauma argument, but we are in traumatified times, right? If we're going to be honest here. Hence the importance of knowing what the heck is going on. So you're not taken to and fro by all the things they will be throwing at us over the next several years. And 2024 has been rather exceptional, I'd say. Now, there are a lot of connections with this Moscow event, and a lot of people are out there covering it in ways that are far better than I could regarding the esoterics. So we don't have to go down the list of all of the symbols and all of that, because I think it's pretty obvious. But aside from the ritualistic aspect of Skull and Bones and March 22nd, I think this adds to a lot of what we're seeing right now is, of course, an aspect of ritual I think is always there. If we think of the occult, which is always present and always happening, always working, if you know what I mean. So it's not as if we could just disregard that. But it's clearly a distraction to a lot of the, say, material things, physical things, infrastructural things that are going on right now, being developed right now, something we've been focusing on for years here, you know, the ongoing process of singularity through a type of transitional man, aka transhuman, into the emergence of the post-human, the golem. And it's very interesting how a lot of these things are tying together, especially when we consider this strange revelation of the JQ, as it were. It's interesting how now it's just okay to kind of talk about that. Well, maybe certain people. There's still a lot of people out there, or a few, that are kind of blackballed from the system. I don't have to say any names, but they know who they are. They were speaking on these things at the wrong time, when it wasn't okay to speak about these things. Similar to COVID. Those remember back in 2020, when we were here at this channel calling these things out in March. And of course, had to disappear for a while due to strikes and all of these things. You guys remember. But now it's okay to say things we were saying in March 2020, mind you. Not March 2024. Similar to the JQ. now you got these new influencers and truth speakers out here calling out the big Z. Interesting. Candace Owens. Even Tuck. The Tuck. Should I be surprised? Should you be surprised? No, you shouldn't. I mean, I'll present what I kind of see going on with that, and it's something we've been fleshing out for some time. It's this kind of it's an inversion. It's the Ouroboros. It's the self-destruction. It's through the fire, the phoenix coming from the fire, right? It's as if this power, and you guys know who we're speaking about here, is going to sacrifice itself, or at least an aspect, a very large and significant aspect of itself, say its own people, to create a new, some say world, but a new being. Yeah. Through the merging of technology, human biology, and human essences. Some would say spirit, some would say consciousness. There's a lot of terms for these things. It all seems to be coming together. Whilst we have the big, famous, and popular influencers distracting us with the details and the particulars, there's a massive organized effort happening, it seems. Let's talk about it just a bit, right? Now, let's start this off with probably the biggest story, right? The Princess of Wales. Yes. Apparently, and in short order, we have another C that doesn't stand for the crown. Interesting. Now, given the state of things regarding the C, it's not too big of a surprise, right? Because this stuff is rampant. And personally, I have my own views on it. I've shared it in the past. I believe the C is more of a metabolic issue opposed to any of the nonsense we're told regarding genetics, et cetera, et cetera. I think what we're taught about regarding genetics is a lot of estimations, guesstimations, and business-oriented ideas. I don't really believe in much that we're told considering the body and health and immunity and all of this nonsense. And I think the big C is involved in there as well. But let's talk about this. So I want to show you the clip here before we dive in, because I got quite a bit to show you and tell you. And see, before I show you this, the biggest thing right now that people are talking about, trying to surf the web and see what people are saying, everyone's tripping out and flipping out regarding the potential for this being a deep fake. And I think this was all, in a sense, this started with, there was an image of her and her children, I believe, that was being passed around, and people were calling it out, saying it was a fake, it was a deep fake, it was edited, and I believe she even responded. Am I correct? She responded saying, sometimes I edit images, or it was just weird. It was super weird. And everyone on social media was talking about it. It was a big thing. And I still hold to this idea, and I believe it's happening right now. A big part of the release of say, commercial level or consumer-based public artificial intelligence has been to create a type of chaos, ontologically speaking, such that people are psyoping each other with deep fakes and edited images. I mean, we got, I guess, primed to do this through social media and editing our appearances and curating ourselves as a self-presentation to other, right? And for me, the goal is to confuse everybody such that all we seek is some semblance of order, of truth. We already have a nihilistic meaning crisis. We have a asocial, post-social, I call it, relating crisis that's developing now. So the general population is going to be seeking some order, some justice, as it were, some believable reality, something they could sink their teeth in, because everything's going to be slipping through our hands, because who knows what's real and what's not. And I think this is a big goal for those in control of the infrastructure, those who are projecting out into the future their plans for fifth industrial revolution and all of these different biodigital cyber-physical systems. And they're trying to prepare everyone for a world where artificial intelligence and algorithms will be essentially controlling governments, policy, creating order, right? Because man is too chaotic, too wild and crazy, dishonest, and beast-like, that some type of authority needs to come down and set the order. And I think people are going to start asking for this. And hate speech and protecting children online, these are all different elements, or should we say avenues, to get us there. Not to say these things aren't important to degrees, not the hate speech, but definitely protecting children online is important, but children shouldn't be online. Simple as that. Of course, that's a silly idea in the super modern year of 2024. I know. Doesn't mean it's not true. Just because culture says something is normal doesn't mean it's okay, doesn't mean it's proper, doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's conducive to a healthy life, a happy, content existence. I don't care how much technology you have. Historically, it's been proven that the more technology, the more convenience doesn't equate to the more happiness and contentment. It in fact lessens or lowers the quality of life. But interestingly, we're moving towards the direction of more technology in route or pursuit of increasing the quality of life. Rather ignorant. But here we are. Anyhow, a lot of people are worrying about, the deep fakes, because that's part of the program. That's part of the program. Confusion. The author of confusion. The prince of the air. Come on, man. You believers know where I'm getting at. This is all in order, all in line, as it should be. But there needs to be people who see through it, who understand it, right? And I think that's why we all come together and have these discussions and these shows, these powwows, these collectives, these communities that we build, especially here at this channel. Well, thank you for being with me. Now let's get into this clip here. The alleged deep fake, but there's something deeper than the alleged deep fake.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I've been recovering from surgery. It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who have taken great care of me, for which I'm so grateful. In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment. This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family. As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay. As I've said to them, I am well and getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will help me heal in my mind, body, and spirits. Having William by my side is a great source of comfort and reassurance too, as is the love, support, and kindness that has been shown by so many of you. It means so much to us both. We hope that you'll understand that as a family, we now need some time, space, and privacy while I complete my treatment. My work has always brought me a deep sense of joy, and I look forward to being back when I'm able. But for now, I must focus on making a full recovery. At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
Interesting. Yeah, I could totally see it. I understand the complaints of potential deepfake AI. All of these things are very possible. But I believe that is maybe a distraction. Not to say it isn't something we should consider. I'd say we should consider that about almost at this point, anything that comes out from the mainstream. Right? And there's been so much evidence of these things being faked, right? It's not as if we're just making this stuff up. But it also is addressing the fact that this illness, or should we say this condition, is becoming more and more common. Now, personally, I believe a lot of that has to do with the type of, let's say, diagnostic system, and even some of the alleged treatments that I believe probably could be that which causes some of the dis-ease, right? Hence the dangers of even, let me just stop there because, you know, we understand the TOS, so we gotta be careful over here. Anyhow, let me show you some examples of this. This stuff is really getting out of hand. I don't know if you guys saw recently, Olivia Munn. She has also been diagnosed and had had a double mastectomy, right? For those that don't remember her, she was an old actress from the early 2000s. She used to host this video game show back in the day. Millennials probably remember her, but yeah, unfortunate. I mean, just unfortunate. Now, there's more. These are just some recent ones, right? Nicole Eggert shaves her head following breast cancer diagnosis. It's, I mean, it's horrible, you know. It's a horrible thing to see anyone sick. I don't care if they're famous, you know. Listen, we can't lose our humanity in this. You know, let God deal with these people. That's how I look at it. You know, like even with the Rothschild death and all that. You know, listen, these guys got much bigger problems on the other end. Not to say some of these people, not to say the world might be better off without some of these people. I could be honest there, right? But I personally don't wish death or wish harm on anyone, because vengeance is for the Most High. Revenge is for the Most High, right? And I stick to that. But it is what it is, okay? Because listen, we all got to live our own lives, man. We all got our own problems, and we don't know what our own future holds. So be careful what comes from your tongue, man. Be very careful out here, because this is a spiritual situation. I don't care what's happening in the real and the physical. Tongue is a lot more powerful than you might realize. You don't want to bring things upon yourself, man. You really don't. I know we get wrapped up in the internet stuff. I know we get wrapped up in the virtual. But don't get it twisted, man. Now let's continue. ESPN's Hannah Storm, 61, reveals breast cancer diagnosis. I had no signs. Sad. Now, of course, we're always going to consider the fact that a lot of these new conditions might have something to do with the juicy juice. I mean, we have to accept that for what it is. And as horrible as that sounds, how could something like this happen? Well, it's happening, man. That's why you got to take care of yourself. You really do. Now, for me, though, I know the biggest story. Yes, Mars Gold, the Most High is doing it this way, Dayz. Yeah, I mean, he's ultimately in control. So, I always understand that. Now, I know a lot of people are tripping off of the deep fake stuff and the weird stories and the weird behaviors of the crown, etc. And now we have all of this sea talk. Let me show you something here. Now let me get into what basically, let me just say it like this. I think what we're dealing with here and I've been trying to flesh this out over the last at least couple of years on this show, Future Shock, trying to demonstrate that all of the things we're seeing, and again, this is my perspective, my view based on my research. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm not saying that my view is the best view. I'm just presenting you what I've come to understand, okay? And yes, I'm pretty confident in my position just based on the level of work that I've done and the evidence that exists. But again, I'm always open to other ideas. I'm always open to be wrong, okay? But my worldview keeps me from, say, having any lack of confidence in that I understand what is going on in the world spiritually. And I think, and I'm sure that scripture teaches us that these things are supposed to happen this way, and it makes sense why these things are happening this way. Now, how does it all work and how it's all put together? Of course, no one's really going to have that. But I think those of us that are out here really trying to pin things down in a way that's authentic and sincere, we can get close to the potential of what's happening, right? But I do believe what we are seeing is this move towards a type of singularity, which in my view is the route to the Antichrist, right? What transhumanists will call the post-human. Through the post-human, the Antichrist could possibly reveal himself. So I understand that what we're seeing technologically, what we're seeing socially, what we're seeing politically is all coming together towards this type of singular enmeshment, synthesis, convergence, right? I'll try not to speak too much on it, save some for the book. But as I see this happening, it's hard not to look at things from a very, in a foundational sense, a transhumanist lens, in that it appears as if all of our sectors are presenting transhumanist goals, behaviors, pursuits, etc. Right? Now, what's interesting about the Big C? Wow, Kai Brown, good to see you, sis. Long time. Good to see you. What's interesting about this is the Big C. Of course, last show, or no, not last show. This was maybe a few shows ago. We talked about its connection to jabs and how they're working on all these new jabs for cancer. It's kind of like when you understand that a lot of that science isn't really, let's say, accurate, isn't really correct. It's kind of scary to think about that they're working on these types of things, knowing that they don't know exactly what they're doing. And we saw this over the last 4 years, right? Now, what we're seeing is another aspect of this is nanotechnology. I call it the nanosphere. What we're having built, we got the metaverse, we got the manosphere and the red pill and all of this like sexual, cultural, social nonsense going on. You got the Christian nationalists going up against the degenerates. I mean, it's all for naught when you understand where things are going technologically, right? Because both sides are all being corralled into the same networking system. So at this point, it doesn't matter what you even believe, because most of the belief systems on the earth are fully in line with singularity. And they're too preoccupied arguing about dating and degeneracy to the point where they're just blind to what's actually happening to the human species, right? And it's unfortunate, but this is the way of the world. Most movements in the world today are of the world, and they appeal to cultural aspects of life. I call it cultural Christianity, which I'm not totally against. We do need to practice a type of Christian cultural living. I think it's better than this idea of traditionalism, which is silly. We can't go back, right? We have to create a new type of Christian culture, right? I get all of that. But it's really just a very surface way of addressing the problems of the world. And I understand it's scaled for business and content. I get it. Guys are out here trying to be something, which, I find very little value. But I understand this is the ego at work. This is the Western individualist pursuit of self-realization and all of that nonsense. But it's just unfortunate to see where things are going, because generally speaking, most people have no idea what's happening and how fast. So let's get back to the nanosphere. Just like they're building the metaverse, they're building the nanosphere. And the nanosphere is a part of the cyber-physical environments. It's a major part of the biotechnological public health movement. And the big C has all to do with it. Let me show you something. Major agreement to deliver new cancer jab trials. Just getting into the jab stuff first. This is from government.gov.uk. Check this out, man. There we are. Hope everyone sees where this is going. We're going into this new type of course, there's the biosecurity aspect of it, right? This has to do with the data. This has to do with the controlling of bodies, of movement, right? But also of our nature. These technologies are changing our nature. And it's my view that we're being initiated into a type of transhumanist ecosystem that incrementally transitions us into something else on the back of public health, on the back of biomedicine, on the back of illnesses, dis-ease. And it's brilliant because the majority of the population have no idea how any of these things work. Whether that be technology or even the human body, their own health. We're so far removed and detached from what healthy living is. I mean, we can't even eat right. This is very advantageous to those in control of these coming networks and these technologies. It makes it very rational, all of these things, as we've described in the past. It makes all of this direction very rational because people are so far removed from understanding anything, really, that they need someone to come in and help them out. Okay? Here we are. Government signs agreement with BioNTech, SE, to provide up to 10,000 patients with precision C immunotherapies by 2030. Wow. Speak Uneasy. Good to see you. Rob taking the bill in as well. Good to see you guys. Wow. Groundbreaking new C treatments have moved a step closer with the signing of a major agreement. This is a major agreement, guys. What timing? What timing? Right after 4 years of this COVID madness. Could it be now we're getting this new wave of these conditions, these big C's, and oh, well, guess what? Let's just create this new agreement for these new technologies. More technology, more problems. The progress trap. Right? Ronald Wright. This idea that we keep creating these progressive technologies that create more problems, and then we create technologies to address the problems. And it becomes an Ouroboros. And when you think about the acceleration of things, you know, if we want to look at it from like a Nick Land perspective, if we look at how the more accelerated the technology becomes, the more interwoven it exists within the very nature of the system. And through the addition of capitalism, what we find is it becomes a forward perpetual machine that literally eats humanness in the pursuit of capital, in the pursuit of expansion, in the pursuit of technological development. So what happens is it is a dehumanization process. So if we understand that happens at a social level, at a political level, at a cultural level, imagine what this does to the human body when we consider things like compulsory intervention or jabs, compulsory medical intervention. When we think of, say, public health dietary instructions, when we think of all of the new nano-based bioengineered foods, what I'm getting at is when there becomes a synthesis between industry emerging technologies, people, and our environments and our markets, say food, housing, health. What happens is over time of acceleration, these things start to converge to the degree that they become fully cybernetic. And this is when you come to the term automation. And at that point, humans in general become, I know cogs in the machine is a very general statement, overused, but we become almost foodstuffs of the overall process. And the only goal is expansion, development, and this concept of financial gain, market control. You know, I tell this to people that are all crazy about Nvidia and, you know, the whole EAC movement. And I'm like, you guys realize all of these guys selling you these pie in the sky dreams of AI and intelligence are trying to corner a market too. Right? It's not just that they're literally creating machines and technology that's going to control entire populations, including the churches, including the Christian movements happening now. We'll get there eventually. I ain't ready for that. They got something for everybody. As these things develop, what happens is it's much harder to fix them. You know, back to the more of a Nick Land view. It's much harder once the acceleration develops and the synergism, the mutualism is flowing, and it becomes diffused out into the world where it becomes standard, just like we are the way we interact with our smartphones, connecting it to everything. It's impossible to retract all of that. Now, what happens when these types of technologies, these systems, cybernetic network connected systems become aspects of our body, of our being, of our behavior? What happens after 5 years of that? See, not enough people are actually thinking about that. You know, they're too concerned with their day-to-day, and they don't realize that 5 years from now, things are going to be very different. Very different. They don't look at the long term. They don't look at how things are developing incrementally. And if we don't do something now, if we don't start talking about these things now, it will be too late. This whole idea of seed jabs is crazy if you really understand health from a more holistic perspective. When you understand that virology, immunology is garbage, not science at all. When you understand that all of these technologies we've been introduced to over the past several years have been done on computers in the matter of minutes. See, when people, they don't want to realize that the human is being addressed and approached and dealt with as if they were a computer themselves. I'll try to show you some examples of this. Now let's get into the nanosphere. Let's go to the National Cancer Institute. Goodness. Can't trust nobody these days, man. Traditional cancer treatments, treatment and therapy. All right, let's get into this. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see this. You know, everything's fun and games till it's not, right? Not to say we can't have fun. Not to say we can't joke around and wig out. It's fun to wig out here and there. But we always got to be able to come back to the ground and see what's really going on around, right? Traditional cancer treatments are currently limited to surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, all of which carry the risk for damaging normal tissues or incomplete eradication of the seed. Nanotechnology offers the means to target therapies directly and selectively to cancerous cells and neoplasms, guide surgical resection of tumors, and enhance the therapeutic efficacy of radiation-based treatments. Nanotechnology also presents a unique set of tools to overcome drug resistance and enable use of novel immunotherapies. As one exemplified in the right image, collectively, the advancement can add up to a decreased risk to the patient and an increased probability of effective treatment. Now, to the general population, this is going to sound like, wow, this is the future. Until it's you, exactly, Ubernutti. Until it's you. You know, we're going, look at this. This is great technology. We're going to change the world with this stuff. Now, some will say, oh, well, you know, it's just nanoscale means small. Didn't Destiny say that sometime when someone was trying to debate him over the jabs and talking about nanotech? He's like, what's wrong with nanotech? It just means small. It's like, bro, you have no idea what you're talking about. Anyhow, so as the nanosphere expands, what's significant about the nanosphere, nanotechnology, is what it seeks to do is to narrow things down instrumentally, right? The ability to change the material function, shape, behavior, even existence of things at its most building block level. Okay. Now, when you apply this idea, applied transhumanism is what I call it. When you apply this idea to the human body, in this process, the human is no longer, in its traditional sense, a human. You're dealing with an object at this point, a mechanism, right? And it is an important part of my work to demonstrate how, through a new form of humanism, a new interpretation of humanism, we're all being not just convinced that we're a different type of human, but we're even now being treated in a way that is perceiving our being from a different type of humanism, a transhumanism. Okay. This is important to understand. That's why worldview is key, because you can understand how people are approaching things, how people define what exists, what's real, what has value, what doesn't. Right? When you understand this aspect of someone's, say, actions or their pursuits, you could start to realize the dangers there, and especially when these are, say, medical professionals or people dealing with people. Okay. Now, nanorobots. Here's another one. IEEE Explore. From eliminating the side effects of chemotherapy to treating Alzheimer's disease, the potential medical applications of nanorobots are vast and ambitious. In the past decade, researchers have made many improvements on the different systems required for developing practical nanorobots, such as sensors, energy supply, and data transmission. A few generations from now, someone diagnosed with cancer will be offered a new alternative to chemotherapy. Now, this is interesting when we think about Wright's view of the progress trap. This is a perfect example. So how did we address this quote unquote condition before? What type of technology did we use? Chemotherapy. So isn't it interesting how they're using the failure and the potential dangers, right, of chemotherapy as a sales point for the new technology that's called nanorobots? Isn't that interesting? Because just not too long ago, this was the newfangled way to deal with it, the new technology of the time. Right? We saw this, many things happen with many other types of technologies. It's all positive and progressive in the initial stage, but then over time, it starts to cause problems and actual damage. And then, oh no, let's go back to the drawing board and make some new technology. And then say, oh, you know what? That one, I know it was horrible, but check out this one we got now. Imagine what happens when rogue or hacked or glitching nanorobots are flowing, coursing through your veins. Can you imagine? I mean, it's absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. But this is the future of medicine. This is the future of medicine. A few generations now diagnosed with the C will be offered a new alternative to chemotherapy, the traditional treatment of radiation that kills not just C cells, but healthy human cells as well, causing hair loss, fatigue, nausea, depression, and a host of other symptoms. Interesting, isn't it? A doctor practicing nanomedicine would offer the patient an injection of a special type of nanorobot that would seek out C cells and destroy them, dispelling the disease at the source, leaving healthy cells untouched. See, in principle, right, in theory, it sounds great. It's science fiction-esque. But see, the problem with these technologists and these futurists and these accelerationists is, again, it's always back to the designer fallacy. They believe things are going to work as they believe, yet they have no foreknowledge of the outcome, of the result. So it becomes a type of experiment with this naive optimism looking towards a certain outcome that very well will not be the case. And regardless of what positives come, there will be extreme negatives as well. And the people who are going to have to suffer because of it are the patients, are the subjects, are the people, the human population. Now, there's a lot going on. Sure, there's frequency issues. There's all types of metaphysical sciences that we'll definitely be touching on eventually. But of course, at the base of it is the material stuff, the biological stuff, because the body is the ultimate weapon. It's the ultimate object. It's the tool. Right? It's the tool that's being used to reify and materialize all of these things regarding singularity and what I will address in a minute here, the golem. It's through our bodies, through the human essence of mind, not just the brain, but mind, human senses, human biological, metaphysical function, this interdependent, glorious, and genius, brilliant creation God has made, could never be replicated, could never even be matched. Yet this is the goal of these individuals, for those that really are trying to pay attention to what's happening. The next, the extent of the hardship to the patient would essentially be a prick to the arm. You see, that this is the sales point. It's like, it's not going to hurt. It's going to work this way. It's going to work that way. All pipe dreams. What if it doesn't? Oh, well, we have no options. These are the new emerging technologies. Do they have to be? Absolutely not. People have lived thousands of years without any of these technologies. But guess what? People haven't lived thousands of years living in kum pods. People haven't lived thousands of years sucking down cigarettes all day, drinking alcohol all day, whilst being in blue light and engaging with 100,000 people in different subconscious ways every single day, whilst being kind of bathed by electromagnetic frequencies and fields. Spending very little time working out and eating properly. People haven't spent thousands of years living that way, Mr. West. No, Kanye. Yeah. That's why we have a lot of the issues we have, in my view. It's the plague and disease and bane of the supermodern man. Yeah. Brought on essentially through the Western influence, if we're going to be honest. Not to say the East don't have their problems, because they do. But let's go to one of these mountain villages and see how healthy these people are. Very healthy. And I know the pompous and arrogant Western man would say, oh, these low IQ near animals jumping from trees. What would I care about such filth? Well, shows how much you know about life, doesn't it? Life. Key term, key concept. People seem to be failing to understand today. What does it mean? To who? And how? A person undergoing a nanorobotic treatment could expect to have no awareness of the molecular devices working inside of them, other than rapid betterment of their health. Wow. If that doesn't sound good. I don't even know what's there. And all I deal with is just betterment of health. I mean, this is the nonsense. This paper presents a study on different approaches employed towards cancer treatment using nanorobots. Further, it provides also insight into the future scope in this field of study. Okay, so now let's keep it moving. Wow, we've already been on an hour. All right, we got to move. Let's move. I'm not going to keep you guys too long today. Let's just run through these, man. I got a bunch just to show you what I believe. This whole it's not for the crown, the big C, you know what it's for, is about initiating the human population. First, we had the mRNA, right? The juicy juice. Now it's time for the nanorobots. Now it's time for the nanosphere. And it's interesting because it's always on the back of some vulnerability, right? Just like they got everyone to roll up their sleeves because they were afraid. Now people will be very willing to take these very advanced and problematic and invasive emerging technologies because they don't want to die. I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is how Satan gets down. And I know some people might not believe in that whole thing, and that's fine. But this is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. These tiny, let's go back to this 2018, right? Yeah, 2018. NBC News. These tiny robots could be disease-fighting machines inside the body, they say. Really? Let's see. Let's check it out.
So what is nano? Nanotechnology is the science, engineering, and technology conducted at the nanoscale, which is about 1 to 100 nanometers. Let's put that into a perspective. The ratio of the Earth to a marble is roughly the same ratio as a meter to a nanometer. A nanometer is 1,000,000 times smaller than the length of an ant. A strand of DNA is 2.5 nanometers in diameter, making them the perfect candidate for a basis for nanorobots. There's a couple of types of nanobots in existence today, but right now we'll focus on those made from DNA and those that are man-made. So let's take a look at the state of the art. Researchers at the University of San Diego developed nanorobots capable of cleaning toxins from blood generated by harmful bacteria. These nanorobots are about 25 times smaller than the width of a human hair and are made from a combination of natural red blood cell and platelet membranes and artificial gold wire. They can be controlled by ultrasound, which eliminates the need for a battery during propulsion.
Now, again, one of the big problems of this is we are whole cloth accepting this technology as not just viable, but also trustworthy, right? Just to be injected into our bodies. This is a full on like OS, like an operating system. This is literally like downloading a program into our biological systems that have aspects of hardware and having these systems run inside our systems. I mean, just the idea of it alone is kind of weird, but the fact that they're just willy-nilly putting this stuff in people is rather disturbing. And what I find interesting is what it does is it circumvents the human imperative. It circumvents the question of, is this the right thing to do? Is this humane? Now, of course, if it's going to cure disease, if it's going to, say, stave off certain negative things through a therapy, it's almost okay to circumvent the question because it's therapeutic. But then we understand the actual goal is enhancement, therapeutic being the foot in the door, therapeutic being just, you know, the Trojan horse, if you will. When we know through technological creep and mission creep, these things are just going to slowly become more and more infused and diffused. Really, really disturbing stuff. And again, we don't know if these systems are going to work and what happens when they no longer work. Right? We have to think about some of this stuff, man, because this is going to be presented to people like at a very basic public level. And it's being sold to us in a way that is neutral. Like the idea of nanotechnology and nanorobots doesn't have a negative connotation in the general public. It needs to. It needs to be a pejorative, right? And they're going to try to make it sound fluffy and cool and emerging so people won't realize what they're actually doing to themselves. And unfortunately, they're already creating nanoscale products in our day-to-day products. If you look on the back of some of these foods people are buying in the stores, you'd be surprised what they're made with. We're already being engineered for this stuff.
While still experimental, early tests have proved successful, with nanobot-treated blood containing 3 times less toxins and bacteria than untreated blood. The scientists note that, quote, "This is a proof-of-concept platform for diverse therapeutic and biodetoxification applications," end quote.
By using this natural biomaterial membrane coating our microrobot, we can impart new functionality, new capability like removal of pathogen and toxin from.
See, that's another problem with it. Why it sounds so good is because it's natural. It's like compatible with the natural aspect of biology, right? So it's hard to argue against some of this stuff. It just makes a lot of sense to the layman.
That, quote, "This is a proof-of-concept platform for diverse therapeutic and biodetoxification applications," end quote.
By using this natural biomaterial membrane coating our microrobot, we can impart new functionality, new capability like removal of pathogen and toxin from the body.
Researchers at the Arizona State University and the National Center for Nanoscience and Technology of the Chinese Academy of Sciences injected nanobots made from a folded sheet of DNA into the bloodstream of mice. To perform their study, first, scientists induced aggressive tumor growth in the mice. Once the tumor was growing, the nanobots were deployed to come to the rescue. Each nanobot is made from a flat, rectangular DNA sheet 90 nanometers by 60 nanometers in size. A key blood-clotting enzyme called thrombin is attached to the surface. Thrombin can block tumor blood flow by clotting the blood vessels that feed tumor growth, essentially leading to the tumor's death. First, an average of 4 thrombin molecules were attached to the flat DNA scaffold. Next, the flat sheet was folded in on itself like a sheet of paper into a circle to make a hollow tube. These were then injected.
All right, this is a bit technical. We don't need this. Now what happens, guys? What happens when this stuff is hacked by people of bad faith?
So what does the future hold? Well, there's a lot of activity going on in this space. Scientists at MIT have recently developed optically powered batteryless nanobots equipped with sensors able to record and monitor chemicals like enzymes and hormones. The information can then be downloaded and analyzed.
Recording? From what I remember, there's organizations and governmental bodies that can get direct access to these machines and the information therein. Imagine someone having this level of personal information on every single human being. Creepy stuff, man. It's creepy stuff.
Study has been hailed as a completely new field of robotics. Further to this, the California Institute of Technology are throwing their hat in the ring. They're developing DNA robot toolkits that are being created to allow medical developers to use them in building more capable DNA robots. The device is made from a single strand of DNA that can autonomously navigate around a surface, pick up certain molecules and drop them off at predetermined locations. The California team used a DNA nanobot to successfully sort 6 scattered molecules into their pre-assigned places in 24 hours.
All right, enough. You see how these guys have completely moved beyond that which is natural, that which is biological. This is the pursuit of transcendence, transcending the material, right? Through synthetic and technological means. This is inherent transhumanist technologies and operations. Now, again, it's going to be unfortunate that the natural state of things, the biological and the natural, are going to be, through synthetics, commandeered through some of these technologies, such that things will seem okay to a lot of people because it's not, made of metal and generally people need to see something extreme to be afraid of it. But if you can hide it within the system such that you don't even see it or sense it, detect it happening, I mean, no one's going to really question it. Here's an example here, World Economic Forum. This tiny robot made of algae could swim through your body and kill cancer cells, right? I mean, it's just knowing what has happened over several years, knowing the incentive for financial gain, for corporate and social governmental power, knowing the fallen nature of man in general, knowing the fallible, or should we say the potential for hallucination with regard to, say, AI. I mean, how could anyone think this is a good direction? Okay. I don't know. So I'm just going to keep presenting these things so people can make sense of it for themselves, because shortly here, especially over the next 5 years, we're going to be inundated with all types of new novel technologies that people aren't going to recognize for what they really are. And they're going to be sold and presented in a way that seems okay, seems natural even, compatible with your biology. And unfortunately, it's going to be that acceptance of it that will literally transform the entire human species over a short period of time. And I don't think people understand how serious that is. As I showed you last show, you know, it's better to say you're sorry than ask. What was it? It's better to say you're sorry than ask for permission, right? That's the whole motive. Shoot now, ask questions later, right? Can't trust a system like that. Now, I'm not saying like I'm anti-capitalism. I think capitalism, like any system, is extremely flawed, and I don't think a good system can exist. But when you integrate the capitalistic drive for expansion, profit, control, and exponential growth, when you integrate that with technological development and get synergism and mutualism, what happens is inherently you get the destruction of the human being. You get the destruction of the human social fabric. You get destruction of the human body. You get destruction of the human relationship, which destroys family, which destroys reproduction. So what happens is a type of thanatos is developed, a type of death instinct. And that's exactly what I'm trying to present in a lot of this work, is showing how the more these things become integrated and connected, the closer we get to removing everything we understand to be real and alive. Right? There does a type of determinism does develop. It's not inherently technological. It's an interdependent determinism, but it is a thing. And the problem with this type of development is once it gets going, it can't be stopped. And thankfully, we're in a position now where it hasn't really, it's gotten pretty far, actually. It's developed pretty far, but we're still in a position where at least on a local scale, we could do something about this stuff, man. Now, speaking of jabs, we have to talk about, you know, how did we get here to the nanobots? How did we get to the big C being everywhere? And now a newfangled novel technology called nanorobots and nano jabs to come in to save the day. How do we get here? We got to go back to COVID. Oh, there's a scary sniffles coof going around. Oh no, we got to get this newfangled novel technology called mRNA to fix the problem. And look at what we got now. Time to stop using term long COVID, as symptoms no worse than those after flu, Queensland's chief health officer says. Imagine this. I mean, listen, man, shout out to everyone who, you know, is dealing with something because of this thing, had succumbed to it. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I rolled up my sleeve, I'd be pissed as hell reading this kind of stuff. Because I ain't even going to get started with that. Anyhow, the big oops, the unraveling, it's all here. It's all here. This is all a long drawn out, in my view, a long drawn out, incremental development of transhumanism, initiating the population, the whole human species, initiating the human species into this transition between transhuman and post-human through biotechnology, public health, and the body. And then you see stuff like this, man. You just want to relax.
And yet, despite the fact that we've now essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide.
Yo, bro got some nerve, man. Got some nerve. Let me run it back.
And yet, despite the fact that we've now essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide.
See, they're in the position now where they could come right out with that. First off, the damage has been done. It's too damn late. All of us who were speaking out at the beginning of it were silenced, moved to the corners of the internet where no one could hear us, aside from our, little communities that we've built. Called crazy, called this, called that. See, now it's okay to come out and say these things. Crazy. And then you get stuff like this. This is the new one going around. I mean, me and Hulk might have to do something on this paper, man. Check this out. 8-hour time restricted eating linked to 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death. Yo, man. Come on. And some people are freaking out like, hey, I sleep 8 hours a night. No, they mean the 8-hour window, intermittent fasting, eating within 8 hours. The argument of the paper is this. It's restricting the diet, restricting the eating window to that degree causes a type of stress on the heart, which could cause cardiovascular death if one, say, is in the position where their heart isn't very healthy, right? Now, it's interesting to me how all of the sudden, this isn't news, there's all these new reasons for heart issues. And now they're saying intermittent fasting is a potential cause of heart issues. Probably one of the ways to increase the health of your heart. Now, if you are in the position where your heart, you have problems there, then possibly there could be something about, say, the tension or strain or stress put on the heart due to this type of thing. Possibly there. But the best way to get healthy is, one, to eat better and eat less, and to be active. I mean, those three things can transform your physical life. I mean, very easily. And intermittent fasting could be an aspect of that. Now, I do understand fasting is not the same for men and women. Fasting can be very, very bad for women, actually, if they fast too much, in that they have a different type of regarding fat and muscle differential, right? So, of course, we have to understand that. Yes, total BS, B1 for life. Good to see you, man. I mean, shout out to Bari. Good to see you, sis. This is crazy. And there's another one here. This is going viral right now. There's all these, it's like big right now. Anything but the juice, right? Anything but the juice. Intermittent fasting linked to higher risk of cardiovascular death. Wow. Like, for real? It's like they want people to be sick. And we know they don't care about health. I mean, come on. I think we've figured that out now, right? I think we've figured out that the health industry, you know, the medical institutions don't really have people's health in mind first. It's always market control, financial positioning, etc. Scalability. We know that. We understand that. Now, I saw this. This is pretty interesting. I'm going to do more research on this, but we know we have the WHO treaty coming up. Now, allegedly, an aspect of this treaty is the adoption of mandatory universal medical passport, which could be used to domestically or internationally. The WHO medical passport would only be valid if you are up to date on your jabs, right? Now, I think this, again, I have to do some more research on this. Now, they're deciding this in May. It's coming up, the whole pandemic treaty thing. And I'll be reporting on it. I still have some research to do. And I believe this policy regarding the validity and the shots would probably be based on country. But again, I mean, if what they're saying about this is true, it overrides, say, even the Constitution. Hard to really know how this stuff is going to pan out, but this is pretty disturbing. What this could mean is that international, for sure, but possibly even domestic travel is over for those that don't want to take on transhumanist technologies in their body. And I've been prepared for that, right? I don't have a problem. I don't got to get on no plane ever again in my life. And that's just a sacrifice, you know, those of us that are really about that life, it's a sacrifice we're going to have to make. We'll see. this type of technology is going to become more and more popular. All these companies trying to scale businesses and scale technologies are going to hop into the market and create all of these different transhumanist like biodigital convergent technologies for the desperate and those worldly types that will do anything to themselves and their bodies just for pleasure or just to, operate and gain access to the world.
Implants are a very versatile technology that can be used for many different things. And right now, it's very convenient to have a COVID passport always accessible on your implant.
The procedure is completely reversible. This reminds me of, I know it's a different type of technology, but this concept of it's completely reversible reminds me of that Black Mirror episode, I believe, in the second season where they had the grain implanted behind their ear, and it creates a type of recorded memory software in your brain, so you could remember literally everything you experience. Your senses become a recording device. And if you remember at the end, I'm actually going to be reviewing this on the Patreon and locals. Those who have recently enjoyed the Black Mirror review we did last week or this week of Hated in the Nation. Shout out to you guys. That was a fun one. We'll be covering this one I'm talking about now. It's the grain. It's the chip in the back of the ear, and at the end he pulls it out. He just can't take it anymore. He's like losing his mind, right? So he literally like takes some tweezers and pulls that thing out the back of his head, man. Yeah, that was completely reversible. Yeah, good point. Hey Baker, good point. I don't know anyone who is down for this kind of nonsense. I agree with you there. Until there's a threat, right? So, like, I'm fully on board with that. And I've said this. I personally believe a lot of this technology is going to fail significantly, right? But the problem is a culture is being formed around it that will prepare the future for its success in a way that we can't necessarily see right now. But all it takes is the right threat. And I showed you that clip of the spokesman for, I think it was Bayer company, where he was like, listen, if we didn't have the COVID scenario, most people would have never agreed to put this type of novel technology in their bodies. We had to have this type of threat scenario. So people through fear would, in a sense, overlook their logic and their reason. And, they're almost this type of almost natural, innate desire to mimic or to be in group, to copy the behavior of others, to do what the crowd does. Without these mechanisms being exploited, people would have never agreed to put this stuff in their bodies, right? So it only will take it's just the right threat, and then they can pretty much get whatever they want. Now we have to talk about blockchain, another big part of this, right? So here's adding to the infrastructure of it all, right? Blockchain becomes a source of truth. This is going to come in handy a little later, not for this show, but we're going to be going into this more, but through biopharma, right? So whatever economic role Bitcoin will ultimately play The underlying technology that powers it and other cryptocurrencies, blockchain, has attracted a lot of attention from a multitude of industries, including biotechnology and pharmaceuticals. While the technology's creator remains elusive, the practical application of blockchain are emerging. So here we are, and the importance about blockchain is it's forever. It's this type of ledger system that documents things in an eternal sense. So this is a type of digital permanence that can be accessed through nefarious means. It's just this level of vulnerability and transparency isn't only inhuman, but it goes against everything we know to be good, especially from the American perspective. There's nothing about this that's okay. I mean, nothing. There's alternatives to our health interventions, etc. This direction is by no means good. I mean, it's just weird thinking that, wow, everyone's just okay with this. But I just think most people don't pay attention to it. So it's not that most people are okay. Most people don't know anything about it. And by the time it's built up and surrounds us, they're just going to be like, oh, well, how did this happen? In the context of big pharma, those applications primarily boil down to securing the pharmaceutical supply chain and ensuring compliance in clinical trials, though other applications are being developed by smaller companies. What is particularly attractive to the industry is the idea of a shared yet secure and incorruptible ledger system, which has potential to play a significant role in boosting data accuracy. Yes, everything about data. We become pure information. Of course, Merck is one of those big pharma companies testing the technology. Oh, that sounds pretty interesting, knowing that Merck has the in-brain to co-develop the in-brain system, co-develop graphene-based bioelectronic therapies. We're actually going to be going into this Merck technology shortly here when we get into the brain. I'm going to do on the Patreon and Locals, we're going to, this coming week, we're going to have a stream where I'll be going into the recent Neuralink developments with Musk, and I'll be showing you how it's actually very old. I'll be going through all of the state-of-the-art cutting-edge technologies that makes Musk's stuff look silly. And I'm going to be demonstrating how Musk's whole Neuralink is just an op. It's a cultural op just to convince people that, look, this is the direction of medicine. This is the direction of human sickness, disease, intervention, because it's all a show. Recently, his first patient has showed some success. We're going to be doing that on the Patreon and Locals. So those interested in those extra breakdowns and streams, be sure to sign up with the Patreon or Locals. Now, we think about blockchain, we think about nanotech, we think about automation, acceleration. Of course, we have to consider AI and biotechnology, but more importantly, hospital, right? So check this one out. This is a new one here. Actually, no, this one from the 15th, so it's pretty new. A Gartner expert points to AI and hospital at home. So I show you guys this stuff because most people are not looking into these things. But as I present these shows to you, piece by piece, I'm showing developing evidence of how we are all being moved into this new type of way of life, right? My view on transhumanism, and this is what I spend quite a bit of time on in the book, is breaking down the deconstruction and reevaluation, but also reconstruction of human being and human doing. And through these shows as well, I'm demonstrating to you that this is a transition, but it's also an incremental process that we're being led down to the point where it's the mixture of all of these things, the virtual aspect, which is the disembodiment. And then we have the nanotechnology, the cognotechnology, the informatics, and of course the biotechnology, which is essentially the more transhumanist component that is actually transitioning us on a material level into something different, whereby we experience a new way of being in the world, a new way of interacting, but also a new way of doing, a new way of actually acting in the world as enhanced or therapeutic beings, right? And then there, of course, there's the virtual, the metaphysical, the ontological, the the epistemic aspect of things that more so focus on the non-physical, the immaterial, and leading into the spiritual, right? And we're going to be getting into that in a minute here, where we go into the Golem and, of course, the Kabbalah, because all of this JQ stuff you're seeing going around is quite a bit of a distraction, in my view, to distract from the actual spiritual elements of Kabbalism, Gnosticism, and, of course, perennial Eastern mystic schools and alchemy, which all are foundational and historical aspects of transhumanism. Again, bringing it all the way back home. Okay. So, yeah, the JQ, this and that. It's like, man, if you guys only knew. Yeah, the noosphere is when we think of Pierre Cardin. Yes, noosphere is a very an omega point, right? Yes, all of these things actually touch on the omega point quite a bit in the book. It is it's another aspect of the singularity, right? It's his view of looking at the singularity. And I have a bunch of different references for different views of this as well. Now, so AI is important, of course. Here, the hospital, right? So it's like they're developing a type of way of being that is disembodied, but also doesn't really require interactivity. It doesn't really require presence. It doesn't really require physicality, right? So these are all different examples of the slow disembodiment. And when we look at transhumanism proper, we understand that this is a key component, the escape of the body, the escape of the brain through extending the brain, extending the body, extended cognition, as an example. Right? So it is a process that we're all undergoing, and people don't even know it. You know, they think the Zoom calls is just, well, because, you know, people are sick. It's like, no, a completely new ontological paradigm is being developed. And it's being rolled out on the back of crises, but through industries, through institutions, and of course, their emerging technologies. It is possible to deny the dominance of AI and generative AI, and how quickly the development and adoption of these technologies have accelerated even since HIMSS last year. We've gone from an existential debate over generative AI during last year's keynote to conversations focused on how to operationalize and scale these technologies in a way that controls for risk and delivers real value. So already, in 1 year, they've gone from just discussing the potential of these things to actually how are we going to make it operational and how are we going to scale it? See, this is accelerationism, unbeknownst to the general population who will be subject to it. These companies in the background, as we play in the foreground of smart tech and social media and trending topics and content creation, in the background, these infrastructures are being developed. These new ways of life, new ways of being, new standards of living are being developed in the background. And no one is getting our let's say, our view on it, our approval isn't being addressed at all. A AI capabilities feature in nearly every vendor's booth, especially the clinical technology solutions, and I think for one key reason, the potential for these technologies to reduce burden. Again, efficiency, always efficiency. Why efficiency? Not for better health, not for a better life, but for more scalability. Efficiency for more technological development, more scalability, and of course more financial gain, but more market control. And when we think of market control, we have to look beyond the finances. We have to look at social and human behavior. We have to look at group dynamics, right? We have to look at self-representation, but also social interaction. These things are very valuable at a data level. Okay, this is something that AI will do very well at collecting, aggregating, right? Very, very important to understand. It's bigger than money. It's bigger than some of these more cultural things. This is about transitioning the human being into something different, but at the same time, it's about harnessing and exploiting human behavior, emotion, etc., to create or to conjure a type of non-human being. I know this might sound a bit extreme. I will show you tons of evidence of this. I will show you technological, industrial evidence of this, but I also will show you the mirroring esoteric and occult references and examples of this. Okay. This is why I think it's very important to have the right worldview to understand this stuff. Otherwise, you just get to the position where you say, you know, I don't know if this is bad. I'm not making any judgments. You get to these positions where nothing really matters. It just depends on the individual, this very liberal view, which gets no one anywhere but controlled, right? Liberalism being one of the key problems in all of this. If we're going to be honest, me, myself, being very much so libertarian. I don't like to be messed with, and I don't like to mess with people. But I'm honest enough to be aware of the malfunctioning nature and features of liberalism and what it actually does. Now, we won't have a political debate today, but still, this, you know, if you don't have the right worldview to understand this stuff, none of it really matters. There's really no justification for saying something's right or wrong outside of your own personal view, which becomes just an individual solipsistic position and has no real effect or any real power over what other people are doing, because then you would just be infringing on their rights, right? So what if someone does want to live this way? You know, you don't want to infringe on them, right? I believe these ways shouldn't be allowed. And of course, this brings some authority. I get that. Then we have to talk about authority. And then we have to consider that man will always be flawed and is fallen. Therefore, any authority will be corrupt. True. Where do we go from there? That's another conversation. We can't have that one today, but we will. The initial use cases for Gen I have been more focused on reducing administrative burdens like clinical documentation, but there is also, this one here, there is also significant optimism, techno-optimism, for the potential of these technologies to improve clinical decision-making and patient care. This is the direction, guys. This is so key. Significant optimism, think techno-optimism, for the potential of these technologies to improve clinical decision-making and patient care. This is where we get full-on automated human instrumentalism. This is where humans are dealt with by algorithm, by AI. Will take time to get there. Might not happen very soon either, because I think once they try to apply some of this stuff, a lot of people are going to get hurt. A whole lot. There will be a lot of fallout because of it. Don't be part of it. Know what's coming. Be aware of these things so you can know what to look for. When your family members or friends are offering up these ideas, or you're being sold something, look around in your cities. Pay attention to what's going on. You have to be aware of these things. Otherwise, we're complicit. And when the ish hits the fan, it's our fault, right? Because we're going to be blamed no matter what. Don't get it twisted. We're going to be blamed no matter what. Of course, there are higher risk use cases and more challenging to implement from a technical and organizational perspective, so I think we'll continue to see slower progress on this front. That said, I'm excited to see what leaps and bounds we make between now and next year. Wow. 2 years. 2 years. They're already considering, well, soon this AI will be able to make decisions. We'll be able to inform the medical professionals on patient care. 2 years, guys. Let's think 10 years from now. See it? Pay attention. You got to be able to look. We have to have vision. You have to have vision. For those that remember that reference. Vision. Got to see forward, man. See, everyone's stuck in the moment. Everyone's just too preoccupied scrolling in their little smart bubbles. Got to be able to see what's happening. We have to see the forest, also have to see the trees, right? Let me give you an example. And of course, gaming, meeting AI, meeting public health, meeting transhumanism, Nvidia with generative AI healthcare agents. Wow, let's check it out. Nvidia, of course.
Hi, Sarah.
Oh, we live.
I'm Rachel,
We all the way live.
your AI care manager.
Wow, can you believe
How are
it?
you doing after your appendectomy?
You know, I'm good. I'm glad to be home with my dog, Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
It's great to hear that you're back home with Dennis.
Oh, you know.
I noticed that Dr. Chang has prescribed you some antibiotics,
Really?
specifically ciprofloxacin and metronidazole, due to your ruptured appendix.
Oh, is that it?
Were you able to get these medications?
I was. I did forget to mention to the doctor that I am allergic to penicillin. Is it still okay to take the medications?
You know, listen, man. I don't know what world you gotta be living in, but to be sitting and sincerely talking to a literal machine about your personal health, that says something about you. I'm sorry. The level of trust it must take, I'd say the lack of awareness, the disconnect from one's humanness, one's self, to really listen, I could talk to an automated system to help me, say, pay a bill or something, right? But come on, man. And listen, I might sound a bit, silly given the state of the future and where things are at technologically. This is going to become the norm. But somebody has to say, and I'm not the only one, but look, this is not the way to go. This ain't it, bro. This ain't it.
Great question. The antibiotics you've been prescribed, ciprofloxacin and metronidazole, don't contain penicillin. So it's perfectly safe for you to take them. Can you begin taking them today?
Yeah.
I mean, for real, you can write me an email. You can send me a text message. Why do I have to talk to some robot android virtual thing through a screen as if it's a real person? Just this whole uncanny valley, disrespect. I'm not with it, man. I'm just not.
I certainly can. Do you have any tips for faster recovery?
Given that you have diabetes, keeping your blood sugar levels in check will be beneficial for your wound healing. Your hemoglobin A1C was at a healthy level of 5.5, but your glucometer readings from yesterday were a bit on the high side. So keep taking your metformin and try to steer clear of foods high in carbs. How does that sound to you?
I think I'll be able to avoid the carbs for the week. I need to go right now, but it was great talking to you.
I'm glad we had this talk. I'll pass along your progress to Dr. Chang.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodness. Well, cute dog, Hope she ain't going to her virtual veterinarian. Jeez. Anyhow, yes, here we are. Welcome to the Terradome. Now, who wants to talk a little bit about the J's? The JQ. Oh, ooh, spooky. Spooky. Well. Let's see. Before we go there, Future of Medicine as transhumanist platform for biodigital convergence, merging body with technical network systems, or also known as digital transformation. So why is digital transformation so important? We covered that last week regarding digital transformation and edge computing, this type of annexed AI-enabled processing network systems that present the Internet of Everything. The reason these things are so important, digital transformation, is because this is what is allowing for the transhumanist movement. This is what's allowing for this incremental initiation into transhuman ways of being. Digital transformation is making it all possible. And aside from within digital transformation, what we have is, of course, edge computing and just generative AI in general, pervasive AI of all types, LMs, etc. But we also have blockchain, okay, which is key. It's the structure, the infrastructure, and then of course we have software and the developers. And the actual accelerationist movement, which is the cultural component, pushing the ideas, normalizing the ideas, making them cool and sexy. transitioning and enhancing ourselves, becoming more intelligent because of our little digital friends. Now, let's get into this, man. So, recently, Candace Owens. Oh, Candace. I don't got a whole lot to say about her personally, though I have to be honest, I agree with a lot of her political views, a lot of her she's social conservative like myself. I agree with a lot of these views regarding culture and behavior, popular culture. Now, I think she has a very stunted and almost surface level view on some of these things because it tends to come from this just very basic Republican conservative view. It's not very well rounded in an academic sense or in a let's say experiential sense. It seems to be the case that she's limited in some of her overall scope, but I do agree with a lot of those things. Aside from that, clearly, I mean, she was working for the Daily Wire. I mean, can you get a bigger psyop than the Daily Wire? I mean, come on. Totally a part of the machine, just like you would find with InfoWars, just like you would find with the Rogan operation. I mean, all of these are just different aspects of controlled propaganda, alternative media systems, right, that are designed, in my view, to segment society into certain hive minds, into certain world views, such that they're easier to control, monitor, and predict. Very easy to predict because they all kind of think and believe the same thing, right? Now, a gatekeeper. Is she a gatekeeper? Well, she's been a gatekeeper up until this point, unless something changes as far as I'm concerned. I mean, working for Daily Wire, sticking within the left-right paradigm, though she's very truthful about certain things regarding jabs and aspects of culture, Tucker's the same. Tucker's straight up intelligence as far as I'm concerned. I mean, all of these guys, anybody that's getting billions of views, I'm sorry. Like, anybody that was, if you have the littlest bit of threat to what's happening, you're not going to be getting billions of views and multi-million-dollar support networks and sponsorships. It's just not the case. Now, I do understand in this day and age, super modernity, where, hyper individualism, narcissism, people are utilizing certain opportunities and networks and markets and, trends to capitalize and create careers. I understand that. I think it's lame, right? I don't respect it, but I understand it. People are driven by fame. People are driven by money. People are driven by popularity. And if we're going to be honest here, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I'm just, maybe this is a little insensitive what I'm going to say. I don't care. I think a lot of these guys out here in these content creation spaces are just really trying to make up for their experience in high school as maybe rejects, maybe nerds, maybe outcasts. They're trying to make up for that on the internet. That's how I see it. I'm just saying. The whole popularity contest, everybody vying, for some position, people, measuring matches, if you know what I mean. People measuring the length of their members, right? For me, I sit back, and it's silly. Right. And I do understand this is the way of the world. And I try my best to live outside of it. Okay. I'm set apart. At least I try my best on a daily basis. But I can't help but see what I see and have my judgments towards it. I think a lot of these guys out here trying to be cool, trying to be the cool guy on the internet. It's corny. It's corny. I'm sorry. And for those that y'all might think that about some people, and if you watching, it might be you. I'm just having fun. Just having a little fun here. Okay, don't take it any kind of way. And if you butthurt, then it's true. Right? But I'm sorry. I just see a lot of that going on. People want to be the cool guy on the internet, and it's just corny. Anyways, Let's continue, man. So the big JQ, man. So Candace Owens, right? Candace Owens. Interesting. So apparently she's been fired, right? She's been fired, and we know for why. Or for what. But how much of it is a op? You know, this whole like Candace Owens versus Ben Shapiro is juicy. You know, it's like content. I get it. This is the way of things today, right? Everyone wants to be controversial. I mean, this is how you get attention today in this narcissistic, normative narcissistic realm of content creation is controversy, drama, or sexuality, hypersexuality. You know, you put a bunch of half-naked, degenerate women at a table, and you basically promote them for a few hours under the guise of teaching them a lesson. You know, like that's like with Fresh and Fit, this whole business model. It's a perfect example of how far gone everything has gone and how this realm of content creation has been weaponized. So, and we even see Candace Owens going on some of these platforms too, you know, which is, it's corny, but at the same time, that's all there is, really. When you think about it, there's such a dearth of quality content, like in a real sense, when you really think about what's out there and what people are doing. And it is what it is. And I know things are going to change, but the way technology is developing and the way culture is so divided and siloed based on a reaction to psyops and propaganda, the potential for like real growth and development in an artistic and creative and unique and sincere and authentic sense, the chances of this is slim. Because in my view, I just see a lot of people like regurgitating points, doing the same kind of like mirroring people's models. It's just kind of creepy. It's like now people, even content creators, are behaving as if they were algorithms themselves, because what happens is you have a lot of people that try to appease the algorithm or address things that are algorithmically successful or popular or trending. And what you get psychologically in that process, what you get is a type of socially engineered behavior modification that presents patterns, right? And those patterns create different categories. And then you start to see that these categories are literal factions, whether they be, you know, movements or what have you. But from my perspective, it's just so easy to see like, wow, a bunch of cattle, and they're so predictable. It's like, you know what they're going to say before they say it. It's scary. And Candace Owens has fallen into that too, being this type of controversial black woman conservative. I mean, it's a script. She is a script, right? Ben Shapiro, a script, you know, Fresh and Fit, this whole like weird degenerate / traditional podcast model. It's a script. I mean, everything is different representation of script. But it's monetized, which makes it even lower, right? Under the guise of doing something good. It's just weird to me, you know. That's just my perspective, man, for whatever that's worth. But it's just lame. It's so lame. The whole realm is dripping with lameness and corniness. I mean, it's just, especially if you look at like the manosphere, it doesn't even exist anymore. The red pills, like this, this is it. Like these are your kings. It's just, I'm just saying, it's corny as hell. I'm gonna stop. It just seems like a bunch of inexperienced kind of dudes that were like real corny and nerdy when they were young, and now they're trying to like get back at everybody and prove something to themselves. It's just disturbing to see. But I see Candace Owens playing into this as well. And if you look at her past, she kind of had this weird past where she was like, she created some website for doxing people or something. I do understand it was like for doxing bullies, so there might have been this altruistic kind of like justice component, but it's still crazy. Like that's never okay. And so that was that was very controversial. Got her in some trouble. Got her in some trouble and kind of blew her up. And then she became black pill, red pill, black pill or something. And then she shifted to this other kind of like conservative, controversial. I don't know, man. Like, I don't mean the girl no disrespect. I don't know her. But for me, like, being someone who's been studying human behavior since high school, all the way up to the graduate level, and being someone who spends his life reading into these things, for me, it's very easy to understand group behavior and just psychological patterns. And I just see how it's like, and I'm not trying to disrespect people, but it just seems to be like this very shared pattern behavioral set for a lot of these big influencer type people. They kind of like are very similar in different ways. It's for lack of a better term, is fake. I just sense a lot of fakeness about almost all of these people. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just I'm being honest, saying what I feel and how I see things. It just seems like everyone is so fake. It's so performative. Everyone's trying to be like a showman or an entertainer. Now, it's cool to have fun when you're being yourself. I'm up here being my damn self. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm not special. There's nothing about me special. I got a camera, some ideas, and a YouTube channel. We get on here and we talk about things I research. That's it. It's simple. I have no goals outside of getting my ideas out to you and maybe building a community, right? And thankfully, you guys support me such that I could continue to do it. By the way, if you want to donate to the channel. But yeah, so for me, it's like this has always been an intellectual and spiritual social pursuit, right? But when I see, because I have to consider myself as well, because, I'm on YouTube too, right? But like when I look at the big dogs, when I look at the successful people, I can't help but realize the fakeness. Now, there's also the connection there's like the connection to different types of sponsorships and big organizations like Daily Wire, Blaze, like it's business. It's big business, So for me, that's just red flags. And listen, people make the argument, well, aren't we supposed to make money? I mean, sure, but not selling out. There's a difference between making money and supporting yourself and being actually, let's say, rewarded for your labor. There's a difference between that, something that is based on sincerity, real value, and authenticity. There's a difference between that and like selling out. Selling out is when people want a sure thing. They want to be able to like be part of something massive that's like fail proof. That's what I see with a lot of these kind of big organizations. It's just business. It's show business, and I understand it. So when I think of that and I think of Candace Owens, it's hard for me to take them seriously because they're at these like levels of fame where they can't truly be themselves or truly say how they feel. Now, Candace Owens be saying some stuff, man. She really comes out with it. So she is unique in that sense. But now, could this be because of her own ignorance? Maybe. Could she be withholding information because she wants to save her position? Possibly. Recently, she's let it all hang out and lost her position. So could this be the case that now she's like legit? I mean, I'm open and willing to maybe look at it that way, possibly. But I don't know. We're going to have to see, because like apparently she's just going to now her own personal, I think locals, she's on locals. I mean, we'll see. But this whole JQ thing's interesting to me. Let's get into that. Yeah, the blue pill sucks too. It all does, man. Let me be real. Like, honestly, it's internet culture, right? Like, that's how I see it. When I think of red pill, blue pill, manosphere, when I think of Daily Wire, when I think of like Blaze and all that, this is internet culture. This isn't the real world. This ain't real life, man. When I go out in the real world dealing with real people all over the place, all over the world at different times, none of this stuff really exists the way it does online. It's a type of egregore. You know, even a lot of the talking points, there's some legitimacy to some things, particularly with, say, views of young women today. Yeah, because they tend to be influenced by social media, so they mirror these things. It's like a social contagion. I think that's the best word I could use. People start to become what they're constantly interacting with. And when you spend all your time in these spaces where people are saying all of these things, you become it. And you start, it's like all you have is a hammer, so everything appears as a nail. A lot of these people are online too much. A lot of these people that, like, you know, and it's a business too, so you have to remember that, right? They're trying to scale something. So I don't know, man. I'm just trying to be as honest about it as possible, you know. But then be real about it. Like, I get it. They're trying to make money. I understand that. I just don't respect it, is my point, personally. I just don't respect it. I think it's lame. I think it's corny. But the world is lame and corny. It is. Like, when we think of the mainstream, when we think of what's popular, what's trending, that's what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about all the content creators out there. I'm not talking about all the truthers that are out there really doing the work, that are really just focusing on their craft and their belief system and really being sincere. That's the whole different. I'm not addressing those people in those realms. I'm speaking of this like mainstream, popular, trending stuff, really. Okay. And it's unfortunate because it becomes a type of mind virus. And you got guys that just sound like all they do is watch red pill podcasts because they just sound like a parrot. They're just repeating everything these guys say. It's just like, damn, you need to get out in the world, bro. You need to get out. You know, touch grass, more than touch grass, much more than touching some grass. Just get rid of your computer, get rid of your damn phone for a while. Go make some relationships. Go build something, man. Make something. Yeah. Anyways, let's not go there. YouTube's great. Shout out to Regmon. Good to see you, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. I know we don't talk about this kind of stuff a whole lot. I don't like talking about people, right? Because it's just fruitless. And I'm not trying to talk about people. I'm talking about industry. I see the mainstream content creation as an industry. And within industry of this level, you get insincerity, you get fakeness, you get inauthenticity, right? As I was addressing this kind of like Nick Landian view of acceleration, you get the same thing in content creation. When people start to move towards this idea of scalability, this idea of trying to scale out content, this idea of, you know, trying to build an audience. Like, when you start operating this way, it becomes more and more dehumanized. But at the same time, it becomes more and more technological because it's algorithmically based, it's algorithmically driven. But at the same time, it gets further and further from the actual essences, purposes, and telos, and meaning, right? And authenticity and sincerity of what you're doing. It becomes mechanistic. It becomes a mere instrument or instrumental operation on minds. It becomes an operation literally on minds of thousands of people. And I noticed this, and it's the natural state of fallenness, I think. You know, we get it's the Promethean aspect. We get our technologies, we end up doing bad with them, lest we anyway, let's continue. So the JQ. So Candace Owens, man, she was saying some truth. I can't. I'm really interested. I'm interested to see what happens with her. Okay, let me just say that. Now, Guess who else is speaking up on some of this stuff? Yeah, even the Tuck. Check this out. Check this out. Even the Tuck.
Security guarantees of the United States to Israel probably haven't helped Israel that much long term. It's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. And I don't see any advantage to the United States. I mean, I think it's important for each country to make its own decisions. Again, I don't think you can overstate the lack of wisdom, weakness, short-term thinking of American foreign policy leadership. These are the architects of the Iraq War, of the totally pointless destruction of Libya, totally pointless destruction of Syria, and the 20-year occupation of Afghanistan that resulted in a return to the status quo. So like of the Vietnam War, their track record of the Korean War, even going back 80 years, is uninterrupted failures. I just don't have any confidence in those leaders to improve. When was the last time they improved another country?
Damn. Again, Tucker says things that are true sometimes. Broken clock can be right, okay? But it's interesting how people are, even in the mainstream, some of these mainstream influencers are starting to back off a little bit and separate from some, say, J alliances. I think it's by design, okay? I'm sorry, guys. I just think it's rather convenient that now people can talk against the big Z. All right. I mean, I appreciate it because some of these things need to be brought up, but we've been bringing these things up for a very long time and no one was trying to hear it. And some people got, they had the wrong way of going about that. Some people got removed because of that wrong way of going about that. But now you got, I don't know. It just seems to be a bit, orchestrated for me. And I'm going to tell you, or at least show you why I think this is. I think there's something deeper involved here. And I said this when we did the video about Gaza, how I personally believe the war, though horrible things are happening, lives are being taken, a massive part of this war, I believe, is the development of super pervasive AI systems and emerging technologies, not just panoptic surveillance types, but even biological. And I have something here that I want to show you regarding that, but adding it to what we've been discussing today, Kate, and the big C, and how Israel is also involved with that. So let us take a look. And again, back to this idea of the Ouroboros, I believe this is a self-destruction. But it's really a phoenix dynamic, going through the flame, right? Phoenix through the flame, burning down what's happened to build back up into something new, something transcendent. And basically, I believe we might be seeing a type of self-destruction in ways regarding this whole Zionist movement. But it's by design. It could look like, oh, the truth is coming out. They're exposing it. It's like, there's a bigger thing cooking here. But check this out.
Next guest is engaged in a fight that benefits all of us, seeking ways to beat back cancer. Now, the Israeli company Biologic Design, per their website, is, quote, committed to curing patients by designing and developing a pipeline of revolutionary therapeutics, close quote. In short, by Biologic, they're working on creating what they term breakthrough antibodies. Cancer patients currently testing a medicine made of antibodies that were designed from scratch on a computer in Israel, and whose inventor, joining us in just a moment, quote-unquote program them to decide, that's the best word to put in there, whether cells surrounding tumors are bad or good. In this fascinating development, we're joined by Professor Yanai Ofran. He's the founder and the CEO of Biologic Design, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thanks for being with us. If I'm not mistaken, this is involving what's termed nano-robots at this point. Tell us a bit about the trials that are underway in Australia and what's happening.
Great to be here. So we call them nanorobots just as a way of helping everyone understand what is it that we're talking about here. The human body has a lot of proteins in it. Basically, everything in life is executed by proteins, and proteins are nanorobots. They're tiny machines made by nature, and they execute every plan that biology has. Biology is implemented with proteins. And in fact, humanity realized many years ago that we can use proteins as therapeutics because they are clever nanomachines. And some of the most successful drugs are proteins. But the way we're trying to design these drugs today, I mean by we, I mean the pharma world, hasn't changed in many, many years. And in fact, we use mostly antibodies in the clinic. And the way the pharma world uses antibodies in the clinic utilizes a tiny fraction of what antibodies can actually do.
I understand this. I forgot this right. The AU-007 antibody treatment. This is the one that's in trial right now. The first computer-designed antibody to enter a human trial. Is that?
Wow. You hear that? Computer design? Hold on. Let me run this back. Listen, guys. This is transhumanism. This is straight up transhumanism, man. It's mind-blowing how this is just happening. Oh, you just can put a little computer in someone's body and cure cancer? All right. Okay, sure.
To enter a human trial. Is that accurate here? I mean, it's designed by artificial intelligence software?
Right. So we have a platform that we developed over the last 10 years that uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, in order to design human antibodies and turn them into a smart drug, a smart therapeutic. And this is the first instance in which we were able to start from a computer model and ended up with an antibody, a human antibody, that is now in the veins of cancer patients in Australia. And this is hugely exciting.
Yes, it's a fascinating concept to think about here. I mean, talking about the use of artificial intelligence. Is it the future in many aspects of healthcare, especially complex treatment? Is this the direction healthcare is going? Has to utilize AI?
Well, it's more than the future. It's kind of like the present already. We're using AI in almost every aspect of our world today.
Wow. Right out with it. You know how many people have no idea this is the case? I'm talking about just general blue pill normie population. They have no idea how all of this is being built beneath us all. And how cavalier these designers and technicians are. We're just transforming the medical industry. We're just on a material level transforming the body politic, the body in a material sense. I mean, it's something to consider, say, when it's just getting started. And this is doing nothing but moving full steam ahead without informing anyone. There's no informed consent. See, this is what happens when the ultimate view is technological development as progress, right? Now, then we have to consider if the J in this type of sense where we look at, say, the Fourth Industrial Revolution systems of Israel or the political drive of Zionism, why is it okay now for people to talk about, say, the JQ or consider things of the past, say, things that almost don't matter anymore, like questioning if, the H happened or not. Things that are very obvious that many of us have been saying for years now regarding, say, the media industry, the hip hop industry, all of this very obvious stuff. Why is it okay to talk about this now? My view is this. It's okay to talk about this because it's political. I'm going to say something controversial here, but it is what it is. It's okay to talk about the political because political controversy is part of the psyop. Political controversy is part of the entropy. We're going to get to this in a minute. Political controversy, debate, conflict is a key component of the transition. It's an emerging property. Conflict, debate, chaos, crisis, warfare. It's part and parcel to the grand development, the emergence, the singularity, the transition. Plays a key role. It's okay. It's actually encouraged that we have political confusion, critique, conflict. Not only does it build up through data, political views, political silos, but it keeps people away from the more pressing, the more invasive and pervasive issues that are happening. See, today people are preoccupied with addressing political things. As an example, people who spend all of their time debating politics, surface level. Actually, it plays into the whole development perfectly. Because politics don't change the future. This is key. Politics do not change the future. They do not influence the future. Technology does. Technology changes the future. Technology influences the future. And if we can get everyone to talk and bicker about politics, they'll never realize it.
You know, we're using AI in our phones. We're using AI in our cars. We are using AI, to identify our pictures inside a library of pictures, to tag our social media. And it's amazing to realize that maybe the last field to enter this party of benefiting what we can benefit from AI is actually curing diseases. And I think it's time that we take the amazing capabilities of artificial intelligence and apply it to designing better and smarter drugs. If you look at the drugs that are today in the clinic, conceptually, they haven't changed for 50 years and maybe even more. We're using the same type of molecules in the same way. And what we are set to do, and we're not alone, this is a huge trend inside the biological sciences and medical world. We are trying to bring what we can extract from data using algorithms to improve and bring about the next generation of therapeutics.
Very important. Key. He's speaking to the next 10, 15 years. This is the new accelerationist movement of biotechnology. Let me run this back. This is key what he's saying here. One who doesn't understand the direction of our technological infrastructure will never understand what will happen politically, what will happen culturally, what will happen at all. Is this to say we can know what will happen? We can predict what will happen? Of course not. We're in a position now where we couldn't even imagine what the next 10 years are going to look like. The point is, they're the most pressing. They're the most influential. They're the most groundbreaking. Right? Groundbreaking. Let me run this back. Listen to what this man says here.
And AU007, the antibody that we designed and spun into a company called Alus Bioscience, is, to our knowledge, the first example where we designed an antibody from scratch on computers, gave these antibody capabilities that existing technologies cannot give the antibodies that they design, and took it all the way, it's a long and expensive process, all the way into the clinic. Now, of course, we need to see that it works.
Yes. Well, we're rooting for you, Professor. Fascinating new technology being deployed here to tackle some of the world's worst issues here, like cancer.
There it is. That's why it will be accepted, promoted, and accelerated. Because it's tackling some of the most pressing issues, like the big C, that will and is becoming more and more and more prevalent. Hence the exception of it all, because people don't want to die. People become afraid. And it's tough. I understand. Listen, it's always going to come down to individual decisions. Just like with the COVID, people at a personal level decided whether or not to roll up that sleeve. Many more of those situations are coming. Many more. And we have the political sphere bogging down with nothing but noise. That's what it is to me. The whole political online communities. Noise. Pure noise. By design, to bog down the public mind, such that these ideas, these goings-on, happenings, developments, transitions are just unheard of or conspiratorial. Right? Because what's really important is discussing, what Jordan Peterson and Destiny of all people had a recent debate that you're talking about, what we really need to be talking about is, these kind of mainstream statistical issues regarding the jabs, or, we need to be discussing what, certain celebrities are doing in their bedrooms, or, women's body count and all of this stuff. This is what's pressing, right? You just feel bad for, people after a while when you realize, man, it's finished. Finished. People are done before they even realize it. Now, politics being essentially, for the most part, a distraction, a deception, right? A derailment, a preoccupation. People are preoccupied with these political ideas, yet they don't realize that these ideas and culture itself is being refashioned through a technological foreground. I'm trying to present not just the foreground, but the background that's working in the background, in the shadows, developing, growing, extending itself, connecting itself more and more, to the degree that once the political realizes what the hell has been going on, it'll be too damn late to do anything about it. And all of these years and years about talking about nonsense is going to mean nothing. Now, it isn't to say there's not a place for politics. It isn't to say there's not a place for entertainment. But today, all there is politics and entertainment. That's a problem. Big problem. Bigger than people realize. Now, let's talk about this, the spiritual, the occult, esoteric aspect of this when we talk about the Jays. Now, I do understand there is a political aspect of Zionism that's important to consider. Zionism being nothing but a political movement, one that I think is tyrannical. But there's something deeper. There's a spiritual thing going on here. And unfortunately, even people that claim to be spiritual don't even understand this. Like, the religious types, or even if we think of religions and religions themselves, they unfortunately discount the spiritual aspects of, say, the faith. Right? And what happens is faith is usually propped up on buildings or men. Okay? Now, this isn't to say these things don't have their place, but what we do is we tend to get too far removed from the spiritual goings on. And then on the other end, we get an overly exaggerated spirituality, whether that be the New Age or the very overly spiritual Christian movements that tend to forget the material, or tend to forget the importance of stability, consistency, and cogency, and these things. So, we get both sides are very flawed, and it's hard to find that middle, that proper, accurate, insightful middle that is described by discernment. And unfortunately, I see a lack of discernment. And I'm not saying, I have some type of authority in any of that, but just based on what I see and from my understanding, I see a lack of discernment. I mean, all across the board. And so, I want to talk about Kabbalah and its relation to this. When we think of transhumanism, it's impossible to even consider transhumanism without at least addressing Kabbalah, right? And its historical influence. Now, today I want to, I always try to use some literature. Today I want to, and this is probably the third or fourth time, but I want to again refer to Dr. Douglas Haugen's work, Seeing Through the Singularity. I mean, it's just I got it here. I'll show it to you. It's just a great book, man, for really understanding. I like his take. I see it as probably one of the best views regarding the connection between Kabbalah and the Singularity, aka transhumanism. And let me just jump into it here, and I want to show you this quote from his book here. Just start this topic off. Seeing Through the Singularity, Uncovering the Cosmic Conspiracy by Dr. Douglas Haugen. He actually has a YouTube channel called Dr. Deep State. I've been meaning to get him on. It's just so hard, with so much going on. But he actually just recently wrote another book that I want to actually read and present. So anyhow, the central theme of Seeing Through the Singularity concerns the manipulation and directing of human consciousness toward the creation of a new order. The Gnostic Kabbalists that are birthing this order aim to shape the human perception of reality through occult practices and spell casting in order to physically manifest the spiritual. I love this. Physically manifest the spiritual. This is so key, right? Because what I take this and what I add to it from my perspective, I try to build upon these ideas. And for me, when he describes physically manifesting the spiritual, I see this as reifying the spiritual components, the essences and resonances and spirit through the digital. And this is something that I try to explain in my work as well. It's the physical, clearly through digital twinning as an example, is being mirrored, but also they seek to mirror the spiritual, the metaphysical. So there's the physical component. We see this in the biotechnology. We see this in all the biological body-based components. But then when we look at more metaphysical things like aura or resonances, frequencies, optogenetics, right? Biophotonics, light, energies, right? That can be digitized. For me, this speaks to this idea of physically manifesting the spiritual. Now, again, I don't believe this is even possible, right? In the way that they seek this type of emergence, but it is something that they are attempting to do, right? Continue. Seeing Through the Singularity. The central theme of Seeing Through the Singularity concerns. Okay, I've already read that. Sorry. And here's the Sephiroth thing here. This is key, right? A lot of this will come in handy in future shows for sure. Physically manifest the spiritual via digitization. I see it this way, at least in part. Okay, I think this is an aspect. It's an element of this that I think is playing into this theory that I think is a very good one, a very strong one, very well written, academically researched, and consistent point. And I believe this concept of physically manifesting the spiritual is done via digitization. Hence the importance of digitization. What does this have to do with? This speaks directly to this whole idea of transhumanism, transitional man, initiating literally the whole world into this transitional period, possibly over the next 25 years, en route or in pursuit of emerging the post-human, right? It's been quite a bit of my book breaking all of this down, so I won't do it here on the channel. And we actually are doing a course on transhumanism on the locals and Patreon. It's called Transhumanism, Intro to Transhumanism and Cybernetics, where it's like a survey course of my book, right? Where we kind of go over some of the basics. It's an introductory course. So if you're interested in actually taking a course in transhumanism, be sure to sign up to the Patreon or locals, because we just had our first lecture this week, and we'll have our next Tuesday. So digitization is key, because digitization is allowing these systems to connect us in a way that can transition us into a post-human. And now I won't get into the arguments of, Are we already post-human? If you read Hale's work, she already claims we are post-human. There's a lot of different views. That's more deeper stuff we won't talk about here. But let's just surface level. Well, when I'm using post-humanism, I'm using post-human from the more transhumanist view that sees the post-human as something that hasn't occurred yet, something that is emerging through bio-digital convergence. Right? The post-human view, because post-human and transhuman are totally different, they oppose each other. Post-human views humankind as already post-human because we've already integrated ourselves with technologies. We're already extending our minds through our devices. We've already kind of, in a sense, escaped the body through virtual communities. So from the post-humanist view, we're actually already post-human. Now, again, this gets back to definitions and philosophical positions that tend to differ and for different reasons. But again, we won't spend any time on that. Let's continue. So, via digitization, example, digital twinning, a spatial web, biodigital convergence, Web 3, Web 4, of course, blockchain technology, blockchain infrastructure, bio-cryptocurrency economies. We spent a little time on that last show. We'll be going into that in depth on the Patreon and Locals. Immersive technologies, VR, XR, MR, Metaverse, right, all of that. And of course, transhuman initiatives like the NBIC, which is stuff I've been showing you today, stuff I showed you last week on the show that got pulled. These are transhumanist initiatives. NBIC, again, meaning nano, bio, info, cogno technology, converging technologies, neurological tech, biotech, informatics, infotech, which is just data, right, which is what the AI uses, and cognotech. I'm sorry, I think it's a neurotech for the first one, nanotech for the N. Nanotech, nanoscale, biotech, body, infotech, data, cognotech, neurology, brain technologies. That's what NBIC stands for. For those that don't realize it, I spent some time talking about it. Our whole new medical, technological direction at a state level, I've already showed the governmental documents, are based in NBIC converging technologies. Okay, so we have now sanctioned transhumanist converging technologies in our entire governmental body and public body. There's no escaping that. We are literally here. I've shown you the paperwork. So when we talk about transhumanism, it's not as if transhumanism is coming. It's already here. It's already happened. And my argument is we are already transhuman. Not all of us, but a portion of the population is already transhuman. Hence the importance, at least in part, of this work. How can we retain our humanness? How can we be set apart from this direction? Because it's not stopping and it isn't ending. How do we know what's happening? How do we know how to approach it, how to address it, how to help friends and family that might be taken by some of this? How do we maintain our human essences that God has given us as a creation in his image? Massive part of this work. Okay? Continue. Hence, significance of international digital transformation policies. So digital transformation is so important today across the earth because it is assisting in the emerging technologies becoming a standard in our infrastructure, in our everyday life, changing our way of life, the way we be and the way we do, changing our being and doing through technology. Okay? Physically manifest the spiritual. So I am going to read from his book again here, quote, through science and religion. So now I'm equating or I'm relating the digital, more super modern transhumanist stuff we're seeing today. I'm relating this to the more ancient, esoteric, Kabbalah, historical workings. Okay. Through science and religion, magic and alchemy, Kabbalists want to physicalize the supernatural into our reality. The meta-historical processes used thus far include the propagation of heliocentrism, Darwinism, and finally dispensationalism in an effort to physicalize prophecy and to veil creation, intention, and order, logos. And he spends a great deal of time fleshing that out. Of course, we won't have time to do that here, but basically what he is getting at is through this type of alchemy, through this supernatural physicalization, Kabbalah seeks to veil the creation of man through God in God's image, completely revolutionize the intention therein, the relationship that therein, but also the order of logos. It's a complete satanic inversion. Okay? Now, it is my argument that this mirrors, or in fact is just the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is this digital transformation, is this, singularity that we're seeing through biotech. It is the NBIC. It is the spatial web. It is the crypto, blockchain, AI, bio, digital ecosystem. From that dynamic, they seek to emerge this type of post-human, this type of possibly antichrist, or what some would call golem. Through this, the spiritual component, but also the technological component, we get this emergence and pursuit of conjuring the golem. Transcendental alchemy, got a typo there. Transcendental alchemy is the meta-historical inversion and revaluation of cosmic order through the control of human perception. This is so key. This speaks directly to my view of war on ontology. It's through the control of our perception that they will acquire these things. Ultimately, the process requires the captivation of humanity's collective perception, say social media, right, to open gateways between the physical and spiritual worlds. He refers to CERN in his book too, which is brilliant. The Kabbalist alchemists need humanity to believe that matter is literally affected by perception, which is at the center of quantum entanglement. Hence the direction towards quantum mechanics, quantum computing. This, it's it's so deep because this kind of stuff is, no one is aware of this, generally speaking. Of course, people in this community are, but I mean the general public. The mainstream population has no idea how these things are forming. But they also don't realize that there is very incentivized, driven magi's and warlocks with intention doing workings, actual literal rituals, forming these types of systems in the pursuit of evocation, invocation, right? Theurgy, all of these concepts, regardless if people want to believe in the woo-woo stuff. I get it. There's real people out here that do believe in it. And the important part of it is those who don't believe in it, just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean it isn't the case. Doesn't mean it isn't true. That's the part people fail to realize. You can't just put everything on logic and physicalism. Everything isn't rooted in logic, especially when we get into the metaphysical, especially when we get into the abstract, especially when we get into complexity and these types of ideas, when we get into quantum mechanics and quantum computing. These more traditional ways of linear thinking don't really matter anymore. And this is where everything is moving towards the mystical. Towards the mystical. Soon enough, all of the hard sciences, all of this linear talk and logic itself will be useless when things become pure essences, pure data at the quantum level of high complexity and connectivity that these lower level ways of instrumental reason can't even fathom. Now, is this stuff going to work? That's the big question. But is it happening? You better believe it. Now, again, the Kabbalists need humanity to believe that matter is literally affected by perception, which is at the center of quantum entanglement. Makes a whole lot of sense when we think about virtual reality and how we've been doing for months now, the reality plus and simulation hypothesis lecture at the Patreon and Locals, where I was breaking down Palmer's work, Reality Plus, and where he wants to convince you that virtual reality is genuine reality, of course, because, see, perception is reality. You want to reify and physicalize what you perceive to be real. You want to take objects that don't exist, virtual objects, and reify them, physicalize them, make them real. This is why everything is moving towards this perception-based reality, far beyond the, older theories. Okay. Now, I add here to add to heliocentrism, Darwinism, and dispensationalism, I add to this humanism, right? Specifically the feature instrumental reason and liberalism as say a package deal. The concept of liberalism, which creates the individual at a hyper scale due to the introduction of technology and capitalism. We get the hyper individual, we get the ego, we get hubris, and of course, through the scientistic, more linear, science-based view plus new technology, we get instrumentalism. But then with, this kind of Baconian man of reason and wielding the power of technology, we get instrumental reason. So another aspect, in my view, of physicalizing the prophecy, physicalizing the spiritual, is, of course, this very humanistic instrumental reason, which causes one to seek the instrumentalization through reason of reality. Say with computers, it's like reality is, as Heidegger would say, a stand in reserve, right? Reality, nature, environment, infrastructure, even body is a reserve, is an object, is a space waiting to be converted and designed and manipulated to fit my needs and desires. So with my reason, my technology, but also my calculative instrumental way of seeing things, I'm going to design or redesign the environment through, say, digital data, information, virtuality, right? Just adding to this point here, this is what I thought of right away. And from this, whether it be heliocentrism and Darwinism and dispensationalism, which gets us into confusion, it gets us into materialism and naturalism. Also involved with that, especially if we think of the Darwinism, we wouldn't have even had Darwinism without this kind of very Greco-Roman humanist development of the human, of the individual, of agency and will separate from God, et cetera, and which moved us into the Enlightenment, of course, and then we get instrumental reason, plus capitalism and liberalism, and then we get true transhumanist movements, true cultural, philosophical, and this new worldview that is inherently transhuman, okay? Which creates, or at least seeks, a singularity. Now, let's continue. Adding to the physicalizing or mechanistic nature as tool. That's what I have, this humanism, instrumental reason, and liberalism, adding to the physicalizing, the physicalization, right? Or the mechanistic nature as tool. Nature becomes a mechanism and it becomes a tool. Just like our environment's a mechanism and tool, and we want to twin it with digital virtual capabilities, we want to do the same thing with our bodies. The body's a mechanism. It's no longer an essence-based aspect of our nature that has meaning, value, telos, quality. It's now just a mechanism, an object that can be, shoved with nano robots and stuff and all kind of crazy technologies because it has no real value outside of enhancement, therapeutics, progress, and evolution of that meat, that, what do they call it, of that, of the meat space, right? The meat space is just that, meat, that through reason and technology can be reshaped, reformed, and perfected. Very Baconian here. We just get right back to the Baconian view. What is the supermodern methodology behind physically manifesting the spiritual? So now I want to take Haugen's concept of physically manifesting the spiritual, which I think is just brilliant. But I want to provide, at least from my view, a methodology. How do we conjure? How do we emerge through this type of spiritual / digital, quantum computing, alchemic, conjuring, evoking, working? How do we do this? Well, currently our systems are approaching something called extropy. Now, this might be a new term to many of you, but this is something that I've been working on, and it seems to make a lot of sense to me. Okay, so extropy, and this also speaks to what we're seeing in social media. This speaks to what we're seeing in this like red pill kind of world of conflict and debate. This is what we're seeing in the political debate with the left and the right, the Republicans, the Dems, the Libs, all of these different categories and hive minds. I believe they're all playing into this at a fundamental level. And I truly believe social media, its access and its distribution has been designed as such that these types of systems of emergence and complexity are created through human behavior, mainly through conflict and disagreement, right? Because this is how you understand difference, but this is also how you construct opposition, you construct polar group dynamics, and you could actually start to predict, you could actually start to manage behavioral processes based on the behavioral data. So if you can create all of these groups that believe one way and these groups that believe another way, and you create dynamics online where they're just constantly in conflict, all of that data is so valuable regarding the patterns it produces. And those patterns create the perfect opportunity for social engineering, say, choice architecture that we learn about through Cass Sunstein in his book, Nudge, right? These are just perfect ways to social engineer people remotely. And then you switch up and you update and upgrade algorithms to fit these dynamics. This is what we see on Twitter or X, right? These types of behavior modifying algorithms that have people self-censoring, et cetera, and acting in ways that, well, we described that the last show. I don't got to go into that. Let's continue here. This is why I say political conflict online, not in the real world, not in the local level where people are fighting for things at their local schools or their church or their local community. That's where the real stuff happens. I'm talking about this online stuff. I'm talking about these panels and where people are just bickering about pretty much nothing. And there's no real fruit here. It's all just different people vying for whether it be popularity or scaling a business. This dynamic, I believe, is a very important aspect of this social engineering, like conjuring of these egregores, these systems that will eventually bring singularity and different types of post-human non-life beings, quote unquote. But at the moment, this is just training AI. This is just preparing different algorithms that will be used for policy making, that will be used for governmental decisions, and will be replacing a lot of our manned bureaucracy. And you'll see this. I mean, you will. A lot of the conflict online is literally training AI to create new algorithms that will be used governmentally, that will be types of authoritative infrastructure that will be able to predict behavior. And it will even be able to judge you based on the behavioral pattern you have in your group, right? And this is across the board, even the truth community. We're going to be part of this as well. They're going to already know like some of our views, which we're fine with because we're standing on the truth. I mean, this is the important thing. Are you sincere and authentic and about the truth, or are you just capitalizing on the internet? Those two groups are going to be separated algorithmically very shortly here. You'll see. You will see. Everyone has a role. Everyone's playing a part in this. That's why you have to know what's going on, lest you are swallowed up by the machine. Extropy. Extropy as centralized decentralization. This is key. It'll come in. It'll make sense in a minute. So extropy. Extropy is a concept that delves into the realm of order, complexity, and the potential for life to expand throughout the universe through human intelligence and technology. The term extropy is closely linked to the idea of negative entropy, which signifies a reversal of disorder and an increase in order. Key. Signifies a reversal of disorder and an increase in order. What does this remind you of? Order out of chaos. There's a reason why one of the key movements, cultural and philosophical movements of transhumanism is extropianism. Okay? Extropianism, though, is much more involved and more complex than just the basic idea of extropy. It takes its motivations and some of its foundations from the concept of extropy, in that it seeks to transcend through a reordering, a reevaluation, a type of transitional revolution of the body. It seeks to transcend that body, right? Extropianism is just like a basic transhumanism. It's actually Max Moore being kind of the head of it. Max Moore and extropianism being more of the, anyone who were to study transhumanism, this would be probably the first thing you read about, okay? It's just the very basic stuff. It's like, just the entry level, okay? Now, my point is, extropianism, though that's a philosophical kind of movement in transhumanism proper, the mere concept of extropy is a property, it's a feature in our technical infrastructure ecosystem today. And I believe the goal, because what extropy really, for me, describes a perfect example of ordering chaos in the pursuit of some type of management system that's predictable, scalable, but also manageable, right? And then, of course, I think of AI and pervasive AI, behavior modifying AI, generative AI. So my view is that entropy is key, because entropy is, in fact, once accelerated, is a good thing for those that want to change the system. For those that want to transition the system or break down the system, you want to accelerate the chaos. And this is what you get with a lot of accelerationists, right? So let me continue here. The philosophy of extropians revolves around the belief that cultural and technological advancements can counteract entropy, leading to a continuous expansion of life. This concept contrasts with the notion of entropy, which describes a tendency towards disorder. Think social media. Think conflict in virtual communities. Think debate. Think controversy. Think meme. Think about this conflict, such a soft word. Like almost the online hatred people have for one another, and the stalking and all of these things that happens rather often online right now. Think of all these things as elements of social entropy, right? Which describes a tendency towards disorder and randomness in systems. Extropy, therefore, symbolizes a force akin to information, representing an increase in structured, meaningful patterns, rather than mere bits of data. Key point. Extropy, therefore, symbolizes a force akin to information, representing an increase in structured, meaningful patterns. This is ultimately the goal. Not just patterns, not just mere bits of data, but structured, meaningful patterns. This is how algorithms are developed. Now, what happens when those structured, meaningful patterns are patterns of data based on behavioral patterns? Okay. I mean, when you understand that we're moving towards a type of automated system of everything, as the Israeli engineer had mentioned earlier, AI will be a key fundamental component of all systems in a matter of years. We already understand that humans don't know how to act. We got hate speech. We got, what do they call, cyberbullying. We have people doing all of these horrible things to each other online. We can't stop it. No human can do anything about this. What if algorithms will fix it? How are you going to train those algorithms? How are you going to make those algorithms omniscient? How are they going to know these populations and predict their behavior? By collecting structured, meaningful patterns. How are you going to collect through Extrae those structured, meaningful patterns? You're going to increase or at least provide the environment to play and frolic such that social entropy will increase. Right? More data, more conflict, more behavior, narrowed down and organized and categorized into behavioral patterns. Very basic stuff. While Extrae aligns with the idea of negative entropy and order, it transcends a simple informational definition. And here I have spiritual component because it transcends just simple information. And this is what I believe, this idea, this transhumanist goal of conjuring and emerging a post-human, a non-living being, or a type of quote-unquote sentient, though it's a misused term on their part, sentient, data-based, generative, or data-based artificial intelligence, an entity. The way they are going to attempt that is to it transcends the simple informational definition. It's beyond just information. And in my view, this speaks to the potential of spiritual component. It's a pure metaphysical thing that doesn't necessarily have meaning or can't be really defined, right, as such. So this goal of quantum and say CERN and all of these transcendental technologies are seeking to evoke something, right? A lot of people have different views or different explanations for this, like cracking the dimension, all of these different views. But it is clear that these technologies, through the information that some would say is finite and limited, through the addition of quantum mechanics and quantum computing, they're attempting to transcend something and evoke something. And my point is, this is an inherent spiritual component that is very powerful. And my view is our behaviors online and our interactions and representations are general training components of these coming systems. So be careful what you do online, for one. Just be aware of what's being built. That's why I do this work. I want to show you guys what they're building. Extrae is blockchain. There you go, Lawrence. See? Huh? Perfect. Yes. Think of why blockchain is so important. Because there's so much data. There's so much information and dynamics, entropy. Blockchain narrows it all down, categorizes it, protects it, keeps it secure. Yes, man. Yes. All right. It hints at a deeper complexity. I have these highlighted here because there's meaning in there that's a little deeper than what's just being seen. It hits at a deeper complexity that may involve quantum mechanics or other fundamental forces, should have highlighted that, beyond our current understanding. Oh, big. Other fundamental forces beyond our understanding. Guys need to realize these EAC accelerationists, those working in quantum, are trying to do this very thing. Transcend the material and to, in fact, physicalize, as Haugen has presented here, physicalize, reify the spiritual. Right now it's through data, raw data. But they're moving towards other ways of accomplishing this. Nanotech is a big part of this, but as well as photonics, biophotonics, light, frequency, EMF, right? All of these things. More natural aspects. They're trying to harness these things. I'm going to show you guys a lot of this technology soon. I just want to kind of break down some of the concepts so we understand where we're going with all of this. We can understand, wrap our head around some of the stuff that's happening. Again, I'm pretty optimistic in that I don't think most of this stuff is going to work. Problem is, they're really trying. And it could work. You know? It could work. Okay. So, Extrae attempts to explore the intricate interplay between information, computation, and the underlying fabric of reality. Let me say that again. Extrae attempts to explore the intricate interplay between information, computation, and the underlying fabric of reality. What is that? Metaphysics, the metaphysical, consciousness as an example, spirit. In my view, this is a key esoteric component to the pursuit of post-human singularity. It goes beyond the bodily stuff. That's an aspect of it. But it goes beyond the genetics. It goes beyond the neurological, the neurotech, all the DARPA stuff. It goes way beyond that. It's going towards, well, there's an esoteric, occult, hidden, spiritual aspect of this, transcendent aspect of this that is rooted in emerging different types of spiritual properties. It's attempting to do this. I mean, this is literal magi, alchemy, sorcery here. Now, I get it. Especially the physicalists that watch this stuff, it's probably sounds like nonsense to you. Wait for it. Wait for it. That's all I got to say. In my view, this is a key esoteric component to the pursuit of human singularity via the digitization of alchemic and metaphysical properties and resonances. Extrae, in my view, equals new alchemy. What we're dealing with now is a new neo-alchemy. Think Kabbalism, think Zoroastrian magic. You know, think about, you know, the magic that Solomon was dealing with. Think of the alchemy of the Rosicrucian era. Think of all of these concepts, but in a neo-fashion, a neo-alchemy that is computational. It's like computational mysticism. It's one coin, one on each side. And in my view, this concept of Extrae is a key component in this. Extrae, centralized decentralization. What do I mean by that? Decentralization is going to be the sales point. It's going to be that which convinces, especially the libertarian populations, that we have a way out, that we have some influence or some control over the system. Not to say there won't possibly be ways to survive and create para-economies, but through the system, most likely won't be allowed, especially once these systems are biologically, digitally connected. Then some of us are going to have to make some decisions about that. Right. Even some of the libertarians that are down with this stuff might change their mind once it comes to that point. We're not there yet. We're not even close. Our culture is too dense. You know, our traditional ways of seeing the human body, for instance, is still present. It's going to take some time. This really is aimed at Generation Alpha. But we can start a whole new culture of understanding regarding these things. Right? And I think the only way to possibly do that is to be rooted in Christ, such that we have a fundamental, foundational support system against it. Centralized decentralization is, the concept of decentralization is actually going to be centralized through blockchain, because someone controls the blockchains. Someone controls that infrastructure. Let's not be naive. Now, of course, there's always ways around things. People are going to be clever. This is one thing we're not prepared for. Many everyday people that are, you know, industrious and good with the computers and tech, they might figure out ways to circumvent some of this stuff. That's all yet to be seen. Right? But we can't be fooled in a naive way by these false appeals to decentralized blockchain Web3 technology. It's quite the trap. Quite the trap. In a 2008 IEEE Spectrum article, Gordon, I'm reading from Haugen again, Gordon Moore of Moore's Law, created in 1965, offered his own view. Okay. I'm not ready for this, actually. Hold on. We're not ready for that one just yet. Okay. Let me come back here. We're going to come back to that. Extrae, emergence of the Kabbalist golem, or post-humanity. Essentially, while Extrae emphasizes the potential for life to transcend the material and expand through intelligence and technology in an orderly manner across the universe, esoteric schools like Kabbalah offer pathways to spiritual power, oneness, and enlightenment through hidden knowledge and mystical practices. It is my position that these points of emphasis are the same. Despite their differing approaches, both concepts share a common thread of seeking deeper power, control, and transcendence. One scientific and technological, the other spiritual and metaphysical. Very, very key. Very key. Now, accelerating social entropy. This has to do with my point regarding social media, regarding virtual community conflict, and the whole idea of controversy and discord. Okay. It is my view that a big part of training AI and preparing different types of AI, intelligent systems that understand human behavior, a great part, or should we say a great source for some of that data, is the raw, sincere, and often feigned behavior of humans online. I think one would be very naive to believe that billions of people online, let's say hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, say on Twitter, or not Twitter, but YouTube, and millions of people on Twitter, constantly bickering, misrepresenting, oversharing, and communicating in all of these areas, millions and billions of people every day. One would be very naive to think that none of that on a human behavioral level, very valuable data is not being harnessed and exploited. One would be very naive to think that. It is my belief that these things are actually being used, and we have plenty of evidence that this has already been the case. Go into some of the controversies with Musk of the past, or with Zuckerberg in the past. We don't have to get into all of that. Plenty of evidence for this. I mean, a good source just to start, and it's a bit surface level, is Susan Zuboff's work, Surveillance Capitalism. It's an entry-level, surface-level kind of, it's surface, but man, does it have a lot of good references with regard to what I'm getting at here, and the training of AI, unbeknownst to people, through their own data. Okay. Now, it is my belief that increasing or accelerating social entropy in pursuit of computational management systems order, or extropy. So what we see online, I look at as a type of social entropy, which is advantageous. The more drama, the more craziness, the more controversial, the better. Because what this is doing is it is extending the behavioral, let's say, continuum of humanity. The more activity, the more drama. Now, of course, it might increase the negative aspects of that, which is probably good for the system, right? Because they want to know the darkest aspects of human beings. They're not concerned with the goodness of human beings. They just want to know what we'll do wrong, what we'll do bad. They want to see us at our worst, right? This is perfect for training an AI on human behavior. And this is what you get with social media. Social media exploits and harnesses and actually perpetuates the worst and lowest aspects of humankind, the darkest and lowest areas of behavior. Right? That's purposeful, especially if you want to create a system that is almost, at least in an informational sense, human. Kabbalah, Golem, and Transhumanism. Perspectives on Singularity. A type of social accelerationism. I think this is what we're seeing right now, especially with just the drama online, and why it's perpetuated through algorithm, why algorithms are designed as such, and why this type of culture is becoming more and more popular, partly because we're predisposed to this type of fallen nature, but also that predisposed fallen nature is being perpetuated and almost influenced more by way of algorithm. There's a reason why you're constantly being sent garbage through your algorithms, whether it be, all the popular trending stuff. I mean, Sexy Red and the hip hop culture degeneracy, or, all of these new tech, people out here putting chips in people's brains, all of these kind of like very over the top and sensational stories that are being popularized, anything celebrity based. I mean, all of these things are being pushed for a reason. Now, some will give the surface level, oh, well, they know that sells and it makes money, it gets clicks, it's all financial. It's much deeper than that. Much deeper than that, especially when they're trying to train massive systems that are going to be replacing governments, okay? Actual governments. Just like they're going to be replacing doctors. Full spectrum. A type of social accelerationism that seeks to disband social harmony and increase epistemic and ontological insecurity through the use of agitprop, psyops, political controversy, and manipulation of reality, example, deepfakes, with the intention of enforcing centralization through the guise of decentralization, also known as choice architecture. See, it's a choice architecture. It's an architecture designed to give the false sense of choice, yet it's designed in a way that nudges your decisions. So the decisions and conclusions you come to, you didn't really come to on yourself, on your own. You only came to those conclusions because they, in a sense, were structured by a parameter that was set beforehand, right? And this entire architecture is controlled and designed, hence the centralized aspect of it. This is essentially what the entire world Web 3 is going to really be like. Do we know for sure? How is it even going to work? It might not work at all, but this is the way it's being designed. And this is the goal for Ministry of Truth. This is why we have Musk trying to create the Truth AI. And of course, UNESCO's Internet for Trust, right? Let me pull that up for you. This is all about creating a new type of wrong think, right think, algorithmically based truth system. Hold on. Check this out. Internet for Trust, guidelines for the governance of digital platforms. This is moving us towards this idea. I mean, bureaucracy has failed. Man is just not handling things. You know what I mean? He's just screwing up left and right. We can't even run countries. We can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at our politics. Look at our internet. Look at our social media, man. Look at what people are debating about today. Like, seriously. I mean, you got lonely fans and only fools that is like, that is all people talk about today. As if that's the biggest issue. Sure, it's a social problem, but this is where we're at. It's actually pretty sad. All right, Speak Uneasy, good to see you, man. I appreciate you being here, man. I'll see you next time. Shout out to Hulk, man. Good to see you, bro. Hey, MoFax is in there. Where's MoFax? We got a show coming up. Me and MoFax working on something right now. There he is. The system controls through confusion. There it is. Shout out to MoFax, man. Yeah, man. I mean, it's true. Author of confusion at his best, right? So this is being built up. This whole idea of the Internet of Trust, which of course will be connected to these types of network biodigital systems. Of course, we have the digital ID and all these other things, cryptocurrencies, bio-cryptocurrencies. We have all this stuff we'll be talking about later for another show because those don't really relate. But people fail to realize how important the technological developments of infrastructure and environment are regarding things like culture and politics. It isn't to say politics and culture don't have a place, but this is all we have in general today. This is it. And that's a distraction because we could sit here arguing about, policy till the cows come home. But when you look around and everything is connected through these devices and it's actually, waves and frequencies going through your body, collecting things that you're not even aware of. I mean, then you're going to be like, hey, did I agree to any of this? No one told me this was going to happen. Yeah, man. Some of us are out here trying to provide that information for you, because, hey, we it's right around the corner. Right around the corner. All right, let me continue here. Now, another thing that just, wow, it's just crazy, this whole idea of extropy, right? And extropianism, if we think of transhumanism, and then this extropy, if we think of like social extropy and social entropy with regard to training AI. Well, guess what? There is a brand new, right out of the EAC movement, effective accelerationism, there's a brand new system, generative AI called extropic. Man, I don't like to be right about these things. I just don't want to be wrong, I guess, in a way that's misleading or, that isn't valuable. But here it is, man. This is crazy. So we have extropic. This just came out. This just dropped. Ushering in the thermodynamic future. So it's moving towards a whole new platform. We are very excited to finally share more about what Extropic is building, a full-stack hardware platform to harness matter's natural fluctuations as a computational resource for generative AI. Can I read that to you again? Are you paying attention? I have theory, I have research, I have actual technology, and I have state-of-the-art developing systems and organizations to present to you as evidence for these things. Let me read this again. We are very excited to finally share more about what Extropic is building, a full-stack hardware platform to harness matter's natural fluctuations as a computational resource for generative AI. Physicalizing the spiritual, digitalizing the physical, perfect inversion. Technological, alchemic, spiritual, digital. It's mind-blowing what's happening at such speed right now. Let me show you more. Let me see here. Actually, let's just speak to one of the founders, or let me show you one of the founders speaking. And of course, this is Bezos or whatever, the EAC dude that we've talked about in the past. That's kind of one of the leading young and peppy minds of effective accelerationism that basically is trying to speed up the process of turning human beings into machines. Okay, this is him describing Extropic. Now, of course, these types of just call people that think like we think de-accelerationists, right? Because we're the bad guys trying to slow down progress. Yeah, sure. I think we've made plenty enough arguments against their concept of progress, so called.
Gaussians, as you get far away, they get like more than exponentially low probability as you get away from the mode. And so, in many machine learning algorithms are really good at modeling the typical case, right? And we feel this with LLMs, right? They're kind of like basic, right? Like they're really good at like typical things, but like it's like, I need this sort of like edge case. I need this sort of edgy thing. Like they can't go there with you, right?
Transcend. They can't transcend. See, as he says this, I'm sure light bulbs are going up over your head. They're trying to transcend what the LM can normally do through generative AI, and they will be using quantum mechanics and quantum theory to accomplish that. They're trying to break a barrier. Yes, this is who's that? Yes, truth, love. This is a new tech company. Absolutely. This is a new generative AI company that's using a completely different platform. Now, thankfully, it doesn't look like it's very functional. It seems to be a bit ahead of its time, but the point is it's ahead of its time and it's taking things to a new level. And its goal is to actually go beyond and transcend actual human neurological computation.
Like typical things, but like it's like I need this sort of like edge case. I need this sort of edgy thing. Like they can't go there with you, right? But human brains can. Why is that? It's so weird, right? Like just like if you're driving and you see something that's never been in a data set on the road, you don't like glitch out, you generalize, right? And so fundamentally it's like the constraints of the hardware, deterministic hardware, has constrained our thinking in terms of where the algorithms are going and where they should stay, and that has sort of held back AI.
Very interesting. Yes, transcending that material, right? That what he's getting at is basically. And I don't think they're ever going to get away from this. They're going to try to use quantum to break this barrier. But there's something inherently unique and essential when it comes to human consciousness and human mind. And these types are trying to recreate that through computation. And it is my view, plus many different people's views that I use as evidence, that present the idea that they just have a misunderstanding of what the mind is. And it has to do with a computational theory of mind, where they think that, machines can, with enough technological development, achieve some type of consciousness or human intelligence. It's just a misconception. So again, this gets back to worldview. This gets back to paradigm, right? It's the paradigm through which they understand humanness and human thinking, the brain and the human mind, is flawed. And the problem is they're not looking at it that way, and they're not even considering that. What they're doing is just trudging forward and trying to create, through these technologies and emergence, a way to accomplish their goals. And I have here, we're going to go back to that Haugen example, and which is perfect. And this is from Gordon Moore of Moore's Law, where he, amongst others, Hawking as well, Stephen Hawking, where they make it very clear that this isn't necessarily possible. And the problem is a lot of these young techie EAC guys, they don't really read the philosophers. They don't really read some of these technologists of the past, at least maybe not honestly. It's not to say that they don't read them at all, but clearly they're not addressing some of their positions, because these are even just John Searle, through his work, which I'll be addressing, as well as Dreyfus regarding AI. It's like, these positions regarding AI and consciousness and intelligence have been refuted thoroughly, like years ago. And it's just amazing to see. I guess these guys aren't reading the philosophers' work, and they're overzealous, right? It's the naive optimism. It's the designer fallacy. They're overzealous to create their projects and to bring in this new future and be the one who did it. It's ego-based. It's emotionally based. So I understand that. And again, these guys are like big on Twitter and stuff. So it's all about this appeal. It's all about this type of social media popularity and being perceived in a certain light as a certain type of thing, right? That also drives some of their actions and activities. And again, these guys are young as well. They're like either very young millennials or old Gen Zers. So, I guess they're immature. I think that's the best term. They're immature. The whole EAC movement is extremely immature, and it's myopic in that it sees everything through this mechanistic lens, and it disregards all of the essential philosophical foundations for truth and being and doing. And it's just a very ignorant, immature bunch that unfortunately is very smart, very industrious, well-trained, knowledgeable in their field. They have money, they have drive, they have youth, they have innovation, and they have the resources and the environment and the structure and the support. So that's troubling. But let's continue. So in 2008, IEEE Spectrum article, Gordon Moore of Moore's Law offered his own view on this plausibility of technological singularity. I look at technological singularity singularity, especially from like this EAC movement, is like alignment. When they say alignment, I know it doesn't necessarily mean full on singularity, but aligning AI with nature, with behavioral patterns. This to me is a form of singularity. Okay, so when we hear the term AI alignment, this is just another way of reaching the singularity. So a view on this plausibility of technological singularity or alignment, Moore argues that it is unlikely ever to occur because the complexity with which the human brain operates. So he's referring to and addressing technological singularity. I like this quote because it fits, it's kind of a refutation of Extrae and Dayz, this guy here, and this whole computational theory of mind, especially when you get the silicon-based transhumanists that want to believe we could upload our consciousness, or the brain is actually a machine, or the machine can actually function like a brain. You know, all of these ideas are misconstrued and I think ignorant when you kind of consider like Morris talking about it, the complexity of the human brain. So I think this is just a good point to refute that kind of view. Moore argues that it is unlikely ever to occur because of the complexity with which the human brain operates. Like Hawkins, he recognizes that designing an intelligent machine at the level of human capable of recursively improving upon its own capabilities requires much more than just the intellectual capability, and they can't even define intellectual. So they're all from the outset. They're pretty much done. Most crucially, he submits, it is naive to treat intelligence as one-dimensional, quantifiable characteristics of humans or computers. Likewise, Goertzel suggests that artificial intelligence should be focused upon narrowly defined technical challenges more than developing a super intelligent computer brain. This is key. Another quote from Haugen's work, Seeing Through the Singularity, Uncovering the Cosmic Conspiracy. Here it is here. This is the book we are referencing today. Really good work. I know him personally, and I really like his work. This is a very good book here. So here we are. You know, this is crucial because you start to realize how fractured this transhumanist futurist movement actually is, and that's a good thing. There's very little, say, consensus when it comes to different schools of thought, but the problem is they all share the same view regarding technological development and human evolution. They just have different ways of going about it. So they're all inherently transhuman, just from different degrees and from different positions. Just like Kabbalism is inherently transhumanist and is no different from, say, biodigital convergence or digital transformation, which is inherently transhuman. They just go about the goal in different ways and from different directions. The Kabbalism seeks a more spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric, alchemic approach, where we have digital transformation, fourth industrial revolution, all of these concepts, biodigital convergence, inherently through technological innovation and science, in route of transhumanism, singularity, etc. But what I've discovered is this movement is not two different kind of movements working outside of each other, but they're interdependent, and there's an interplay between the two. And I would argue that a lot of these types, like Bezos or Dayz himself, Beth Dayz on Twitter, he doesn't even realize that he's working with alchemy. And he might refer to it sometimes jokingly, but these guys don't realize that they're actually working with alchemic processes, especially once we get into the quantum realm. Okay, now go back here to finish up. Essentially, while Extrae emphasizes the potential for life to transcend the material and expand through intelligence and technology in an orderly manner across the universe, esoteric schools like Kabbalah offer pathways to spiritual power, oneness, and enlightenment through hidden knowledge and mystical practices. It is my position that these points of emphasis are the same. Okay, I read that. Increasing, now this has to do with social media that we see going on right now, especially on Twitter, which is like, it's a cesspool of just bickering, especially in the political realm. That's where I get a lot of this kind of perspective, is just looking at Twitter and just the way the political communities there. It's chaotic and it's toxic. And at the same time, I understand through Grok and other systems, Musk is training generative AI on all of this data, as well as he is maybe unadmittingly aligned with and supporting the Israeli Fourth Industrial Revolution development. So clearly he's playing a key role in the Kabbalist development of Golem, as well as transhumanism into posthumanism. So Twitter, to me, X clearly is an aspect of this social accelerationism. And I'm seeing it on YouTube as well, you know, and I think the first example I saw of that is through the Red Pill communities, which took off in 2020. And it was very clear to me that this is a type of a social operation, because all of the players involved are misrepresentations of what is, I would say, what is the right direction. Regardless of people making good arguments in different positions, I believe overall the system is it contributes to the chaos in the pursuit of a type of specialized order that is algorithmic. And I believe it is also designed certain types of groupthink. It's literally created cults of different sorts. And it's just a way to itemize and categorize human behavioral patterns through digital silos that I think will be capitalized on later. Right now, we're going through a type of training process. I think this is what social media is inherently about, you know, unfortunately. It's really a training process for certain massive pervasive systems that are seeking a type of mass database of behavioral patterns, behavioral data, behavioral surplus, as Buzov would say. Zuboff. Buzov. A type of social accelerationism that seeks to disband social harmony and increase epistemic ontological insecurity through the use of agitprop, psyops, political controversy, and manipulation of reality, with the intentions of enforcing centralization through the guise of decentralization. This is where people will beg for censorship, or they will beg for some type of order, some type of authority to tell them what is real. Please tell me what is real. I just want to know what's real. We need AI to tell us what's real. This is where a lot of this is going. And I think when we think about the JQ, we are bogged down by the political aspects of the JQ and the political history, or the historical components, the socio-historical, political / cultural components of the JQ with regard to America, say the black community, the white community, all of the different theories and discussions therein, though they have relevance, right? I mean, they come from somewhere. These things essentially, I believe, are psyops, or at least distractions from the more spiritual aspects of, say, Kabbalah as an example, and alchemy that's happening through these worldviews and through these political systems. Because if we look at, say, Zionism as an example, we do see that at its root, there is these occult, esoteric belief systems that are being applied at the highest levels, especially when we look at the technology that they are actually building right now and experimenting with in, say, Gaza as an example. And for people to think this technology isn't going to be deployed and used in other places, I mean, it's just naive. Who is this JQ fella? That's funny. Yeah, it's not unwittingly Dayz. Yes, this is true. So we have to be, that's all. I think we just, you know, it's just my perspective. You know, I'm not gonna tell people what to do. But there's more to it. There's more than meets the eye, as they used to say. Yeah, virtual insanity sums it up. Ain't that the truth? So as we see the circus online, the circus on social media, the circus on YouTube, it's all part of the big project. Are you part of it? Are you contributing to it? Think about it. And those that are contributing to it and part of it, of course, aren't going to like anything that I have to say. And that's fine. There's a dog in the fight. It's understandable. It's not going to change what's happening. It's not going to change what's coming. So, I mean, the point is we just have to be honest and real about what the heck is going on. All right, man. Well, let's see. I think that's good. I think we got through it all. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, so next week we have lecture 2 of Transhumanism, Intro to Transhumanism and Cybernetics. We're going to have a stream on Musk, Neuralink, and its old, lame, and outdated technology, where I will be showing you the real technology that's actually out there right now. We'll be having that next week as well. Next week will be fun. Got a lot of stuff to discuss on the member groups. That's Patreon and Locals. For those that are interested, please sign up. The JQ is the J question, the J having to do with a certain group. But when we use that term here, at least, we're referring to Zionism, not necessarily Jewish people, because we can't speak to a whole people. But there's definitely a small organized group that I believe descends from some of these magi's that are still incorporating these esoteric and alchemic belief systems in the technologies that they're working on today. And even in the media and the construction of the media, social media, etc. When we look at some of this stuff, you can't help but see it. So, we're not doing anything other than that. Yeah, so I appreciate you all. I love you all. Get myself out of here. Thank you all for being with me. Shout out to all the mods. And regarding like Candace Owens, Tucker, let's pay attention as far as like seeing what happens with them. I see it all as, mainstream show business. That's how I look at it. It's all show business. It's surface level stuff. They say a little bit of truth here and there. Keeping people in the left-right paradigm, keeping people wrapped up in politics, keeping people wrapped up in the mainstream things, not really talking about the more pressing, more vital issues happening, talking about what's safe to talk about. And some people could chalk it up to ignorance. Some people could say, oh, they know what they're doing. They're shills, they're grifters. I don't know, man. I don't know any of these people. All I can go off is what they say and what they present. And as far as I'm concerned, 99% of the mainstream crap I see is just that crap. Right? I could agree with some points here and there, but the majority of it is nonsense. And the majority of it is designed such that you don't know what's actually happening around you. That's how I see it, man. So I want to end the show as always by saying all praises to the Most High God. In Jesus' name, amen and shalom. R.I.P. Davy Crocco, man. R.I.P. that man, Davy Crocco. Davy Crocco. Shout out to Davy Crocco, man. R.I.P. Miss you, bro.